So, what's up, everybody? This is, of course, Leo, and you're watching the Fight Game Podcast. I got my co-host here, Paul Sichering, Super Coach Paul, and we got a really special guest today. You're going to be really, really, really happy and excited that you guys came here today to watch this because this is a guy that's within the fight industry. You can't get much more in than this guy, all right? He's part of the reason why you guys get to see live shows and hear about them and read about them in the whole nine. He works with a very, very cool company called Suckerpunch, and we're gonna learn a lot about the industry. We're gonna learn about him because we learned a few new things.
We got a few tidbits.
Kind of didn't expect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, guys, hopefully if you guys enjoy the episode, what you're going to do is you're going to like, share, subscribe, and all the other good buttons that you can push. Super easy to do. And if you want to support the podcast, please, here on Patreon, where you're probably watching this right now, Patreon / that's www.patreon.com / Fight Game Podcast, and you'll be able to click the button, become a patron for $2 a month. It's not a whole lot to pay for the knowledge and the entertainment that you're going to be getting today. So thanks again. Please support. And without further ado, let's start the show. Today we have David Arvelo. Did I say that right?
Yes. Yeah, you did.
It's pretty good. I didn't give it too much of a Arvelo. It's Hispanic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spanish and Puerto Rican.
And Puerto Rican? Oh man, maybe he should be on the Righteous Anger podcast.
We'll need him on there.
I like that one too, man. So just let me know. You know?
My boy Eric the Atheist is also a Puerto Riqueño, but I call him Mexican just to make him mad. It never works though. He's just like whatever.
Isn't that Boricua?
Yeah,
There you go.
But I still say Mexican because I know it insults him. He doesn't
That's
like
dirty.
it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. Sorry, Mexican people that are watching this. Oh wait, there we go. Okay, all is well now. I hit the inappropriate bell. So, David, tell me about what you do. First of all, tell me about Sucker Punch. What's that?
Sure. I work for Suckerpunch Entertainment. Suckerpunch Entertainment's a sports agency. We represent a lot of top-level mixed martial arts fighters as well as professional kickboxers. Some people have boxed as well. But, we're primarily focused more on mixed martial arts and professional kickboxing and Muay Thai. We don't get me wrong. I mean, we do represent a lot of top-level talent like UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway, former and the first UFC women's featherweight champion Germaine de Randamie.
Nice.
A lot of other top level UFC contenders, and then from there too, I think something that kind of sets us apart and differentiates us a little bit is we also have a very good and productive farm system. A lot of other management companies, they can go and, you can go and kind of snipe the guy who's already, say, 10-0 or something.
Yeah.
You get him maybe one more win, sprinkle some fairy dust on him, and then you get him into the UFC or something like that. But, realistically, by the time you got a hold of that guy, the work had already, a lot of that had been done. And, we'll pick up a guy who's making his pro debut. Or, a guy who's maybe only a couple of fights in, or anywhere in between, really. Because I think we have the, connections and the means, the motivation and the patience to actually, go through what it takes to, help develop a guy. Because, there are a lot of guys out there that absolutely, I think, had the potential to, get to a high-level show. But, they made some of the wrong moves coming up. And, they took tons of tough fights, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like if, there's a time and a place for everything. But if you end up, say, 10-6, and you fought nothing but tough guys, that's cool. You fought nothing but tough guys. I mean, cool, good stuff, like props. But if you're 10-6, past a certain point, nobody cares, and you're not getting into the UFC anytime soon.
If you're 10-6 past a certain point, like age-wise?
If you're a lot older, that starts to come into play. But, it's not that it's not possible to get to a higher level show at that point, but like you're going to have to go on a really long win streak. You're going to have to rack up a lot of W's, get a lot of good scalps, and basically just win and keep winning.
Are you guys listening to this? Okay, we're talking to the guy, one of the guys that can help you reach your goals. Listen to this guy, all right? There's this tough guy complex out there. It's like, oh no, man, I got to go to war every time. It's like, okay,
Yeah, I mean, you can take fights with your dick all you want, but I mean, you can easily be really good and end up with a 500 record. Like records aren't everything, right? Like I've picked up dudes that had undefeated records, like on paper and in all actuality, studs, right? Like,
yeah,
think it's a can't miss thing,
right.
You have that, or you have other guys. I mean, you really just kind of have to look at it because, like, say for example, like a guy who was the second guy I ever signed once I came on with Suckerpunch about like 4 years ago now. JD DiMaggio, for example, former stud football player, power lifter, pretty extensive amateur boxing background.
This guy's checking all the boxes, right? Like,
great hands,
yeah.
When I picked him up, JD was 3-2, which on paper isn't a sexy record. But the thing is, one of his fights, he tried to cut to 55. He's just way too big, way too thick, just muscular dude. Weight cut went horribly. He felt terrible the next day.
How tall was he? Is he?
JD's like 5'10".
Okay, you can do 55 at 5'10", man.
American Top Team guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
JD
DiMaggio, yeah.
DiMaggio.
But
you would think it's like Dominu or whatever
Yes.
if you went by the traditional French pronunciation,
Yes.
but like
Okay. That's why I got confused because I was like, I think I remember who you're
but,
talking
but
about.
he's Cajun, and like down there they pronounce names and a lot of other things in really
Right,
kind of freaky
okay.
Cajun ways.
Okay.
So
Got-
So I'm sorry. He fights at 85 usually.
No, he fights at 70.
70, okay.
But he's just, if there was a 65 division, that would probably be his jam. But like,
Okay.
he's just a little too big and a little too thick to make 55. Like,
I-
it was just,
I can completely relate to him.
yeah.
Because they want me to be 135, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen 135 since elementary school. That ain't happening.
I wrestled at 135 in 8th grade.
Yes, exactly. That was the last time, and that will be the last time. Even though I didn't grow like in height since then either.
Yeah. But that guy, for example, one of his losses, he tried to cut to 55. It was just went horribly, didn't make weight, missed by a lot, felt like shit. And
Yeah.
just didn't go well. And then his other fight, he took on less than a week's notice against a 205er at a 200-pound catch weight, and he actually put on a clinic. He put a clinic on the dude for like almost 3 whole rounds. Beat the dog shit out of the guy, hit him with flying knees, all kinds of stuff. But he broke his foot on the dude's head.
Just kicking his ass.
Just kicking, like he just, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, you had a welterweight fighting a 205er who had 16 fights and JD had 2, and he fought at 205, and he took everything. I mean, got the crap kicked out of him, but JD broke his foot on the dude's head, kicking him in the head.
And then that was what?
Like he couldn't really move after that. The dude just kind of caught him against the cage and stuff like that. And, and so they waved it off like late in the third as like a TKO, but like he had a broken foot, like he just couldn't move. But at his natural weight class, he was undefeated, and I heard from people that like they had put him in the training camp for Robbie Lawler for both of Lawler's fights with Johnny Hendricks, because JD's also a shorter southpaw, has solid wrestling and better hands than Johnny Hendricks would ever have in his life. And both times they ended up having to take JD out of the camp later on because he was doing so well, I'll just put it that way. And it was frustrating Robbie Lawler so much that it was fucking with his confidence. And they were just like, hey, man, like, thanks, but like, we're going to just take you out.
We're going to need to go in a different direction right now.
And because Robbie Lawler couldn't hit him.
There's no way they told him that, though. That's something that I don't think Pride would let you say. You're too good for our champion. You can't. We can't.
They didn't say that, but I mean, they were just like, hey, it's messing with his confidence. Like, we're just,
Gangster. I'll tell you what, that didn't mess. I'm sure it didn't mess with JD's confidence.
Yeah. So when I heard that, I was just like, hey, like realistically, like at welterweight, this guy's undefeated. And if kind of pushed in the right direction, I know the type of guys he can hang with. Like there's potential there. It's like kind of he's more of like a diamond in the rough type dude because 3-2 on paper isn't a sexy record by any stretch.
No.
But now it's like JD's 13-4 and he's kicking ass.
That is a way sexier record.
Now, let me ask you this about Sucker Punch. You guys, it sounds the way that you're telling this, it sounds like you guys build the fighters up to a certain extent as well, and you help bring them along on their journey. Now, is that a risk that you guys take? Because at some point, you guys can bring somebody up to a great level, world beater, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and snipes them because they're gonna be
Sure.
able to offer them X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I mean that is a risk, but the thing is, at the end of the day, we want to work with people who want to work with us.
Okay.
We're pretty confident about what we can do,
Yeah.
at every level of the sport, whether it's a guy who's developmental, is kind of on his way up, or whether it's a guy in a big show. We've got, I believe still now probably more guys under contract with the UFC than anyone else. And that's something that's only going to increase over time, just because I believe in what we're doing with our farm system and everything else is really going to yield dividends in the years to come. When you look at all these guys we have coming up, if someone comes in and poaches a guy, hey man, best of luck. But just we're involved in a lot of different stuff in the industry, and if you want to come and poach from us and basically steal the time and resources and stuff that we put into people, great. Good for you. I hope you never need anything from me. Whether that's fights for your guys or whatever, but
Because that's just reminding me of a very Jerry Maguire type situation, right?
The show me the money agent for football player type of thing.
Like it just sounds kind of. I mean, it's a risky move to do from a business perspective, but because of what I'm hearing from you, because of how much you guys believe in your system and your ability to be able to bring these guys develop and get them to the great shows and get their name out there. Like I would think that should be enough, but then there are always going to be those other vultures that are kind of coming around.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there was a guy who a couple of years ago, he tried making a run at a lot of the guys that I was working with, at a gym in Florida, and and
now he's being PC and political.
No, it has nothing to do with the gym whatsoever. But he poached like two dudes from me, hitting them with the snake oil and stuff like that. Probably threw him a little bit of cash, but like I knew who that guy was, and I mean, aside from the fact that the guy's kind of a psychopath, like he's just full of shit. Didn't really have much in the way of juice or the ability to really back up a lot of what he was promising these guys.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, I knew who that guy was, and I just tell dudes in that situation when it's obvious that they've been poached. Essentially, I'm just like, hey, this is my thoughts on the situation. Don't really think this is the right move for you, but if that's what you want to do,
right?
Best of luck, bro.
Dude, now I'm interested. And okay, so for those of you guys that have been fans for a while of Righteous Anger or podcast or this one, that I'm also owner of a production studio. We make film, TV, and commercials.
Yeah.
And you're giving me an idea, the Jerry Maguire of MMA. Don't you think that would be something to watch? That's got to be something to watch, especially with football players, testosterone, da-da-da, but they're not killers. So you got that added thing there,
Yeah.
So where is Sucker Punch headquartered?
Well, I guess nominally, I would say Richmond, Virginia. Brian Butler, the guy who originally founded Sucker Punch. If you aren't necessarily familiar with who he is, if you look at a lot of pictures or videos when like Max Holloway is fighting, at UFC events and stuff, you'll see Brian. He's a Asian guy who's always dressed to the nines, super dapper guy.
I know an Asian guy just like that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Paul, but Brian Butler has one of the best suit games in the industry for sure.
Yeah.
Very spiffy dude all the time. He's helped me kind of clean up a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're gonna always be different people in terms of how we tend to dress or look.
Right.
But Brian Butler, he lives in Richmond. He started Sucker Punch, I think like a decade ago.
Wow. So he's been
More.
Who were some of the first Sucker Punch talent that you guys signed?
The very first guy was actually Jens Pulver.
Whoa.
Really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, first guy, yeah, and
On his first run or the second run when he came back to the UFC?
This was when he was
Building up the BJ Penn rivalry, the second BJ Penn.
no, this I think they got together when he was in the WEC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I remember watching Jens in the WEC.
Yeah, which was an awesome promotion.
Yeah.
Which eventually got rolled into the UFC. But
Yeah, unfortunately.
yeah, the Jens Pulver and like Jeff Curran and some of those other guys.
Jeff Curran's amazing.
Yeah, Jeff Curran and a lot of the other guys. Felice Herrig as well.
Oh, very cool.
Some of the other guys from Jeff's gym, like Bart Palashevsky, who still even to this day has some of the best tattoos that have ever been inside the UFC cage.
Oh, by the way, your tattoos are phenomenal.
Thank you.
I know down in the RVA they've got some great
Yeah.
tattoo artists. I'm actually a licensed tattoo artist here
Awesome,
in Virginia
yeah,
myself,
cool.
and when it's so funny, I did it yesterday. I went to 2 breweries yesterday, one after the other. Yeah, I did. I know you didn't cough for that, but the thing is, it's weird. I'll walk up to somebody if I see good work, and I'll tell them that, because there's so much bad work out there that when I see good work, I go, you spent the money, or you know somebody who should be very, very expensive, and that's what it looks like on you, man. This is like really good work.
I also spent the money to cover up the bad work.
The bad
that I
work.
got done
Oh,
in
okay.
college.
All right.
I got
That's
two. I got
hilarious.
2 half sleeves earlier in college, and they were okay. But then when I started kind of getting out there a little bit more, and I was like looking around, and I was like, ooh, I'm not happy with this. And
Yeah.
when I moved to Richmond, I talked to a couple people, and they were just like, "Oh, nah, man, like you already got a half sleeve. You can add some stuff, but like you can't really cover that up." Whereas, I've walked into Absolute Art, and
Yes.
the guy who
Absolute, man.
the guy who does mine, Dave Boiseno,
Yes.
he looked at my arms for about like 30 seconds. He was like, "Oh yeah, man, I can cover that up, no
Dude,
problem."
I got a inked magazine with it's an old one. It's got Kat Von D on the cover back when she was like the hottest thing in tattoo world, and Absolute, it has their own story in the like a cover story in the magazine.
That's very
Probably
cool.
talking a lot about like Brian Bruno and like
Yeah.
a lot of the old like Japanese stuff that he does
Yep.
and everything.
Yep.
It stuff's beautiful. It's not my style, but like it's amazing stuff. I'm getting ready to probably in the next like month or so start like leg sleeves.
Killer.
I'll start on this one first, and then keep it going from there.
I did a cover up last week actually on a guy, and sometimes I look at people with work and I say, don't cover that up, man. That's part of that's your history there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. But sometimes you see the tattoos, you're like, yeah, let's cover that up.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go ahead and do that. I wanted to ask, the reason why I asked you where you guys are headquartered is because you guys deal with fighters not just in the Virginia area, but all over,
all
right?
over the world, yeah.
How do now? You don't develop everybody, right?
No, but we develop a lot of our guys.
And how do you do that when you're headquartered here? But like, do you have like how does that work exactly? How do you develop them?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to when a fighter's kind of building his career and stuff like that, I mean, once he's done with his amateur career and he's getting ready to go pro, we're working with a guy, depending on his area, he'll fight, kind of local shows. Sometimes he'll go out of state. It really just depends on, good fights, good matchups, stuff like that.
Right.
Sometimes you get guys, like we have some guys out of Extreme Couture in Vegas. Great city for training, a ton of great gyms.
Yes.
But there's almost no regional scene in Nevada itself at the pro level because the fees and the regulations for pro MMA in Nevada are so expensive that basically, unless you're the UFC, you're just not going to make money. Because if you take the normal budget that you have for a show and then you add 15, 20 plus K in additional, licensing fees, requirements, crazy insurance requirements, other stuff, you're going to blow up most budgets for a regional show.
Is that because UFC? Is that a UFC thing? Like they made that happen?
No, that's a Nevada Athletic Commission thing. Just some athletic commissions in the country, have requirements that are kind of reasonable, and then other commissions have, they charge you out the wazoo for officials and licensing fees and just all this other stuff, and their insurance requirements are just off the chain. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you want to have things in place for when guys get hurt and everything, right? But the thing is, like, it's always usually most of these requirements that keep climbing up and up and up are kind of knee-jerk reactions to when guys get really hurt,
Injuries,
or possibly die from fights. And it's like, that's a tragedy, right? Like, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's sad. You feel bad for them, their families, whatever. But the thing is, like, it's a combat sport where you're hitting and or kicking, kneeing, and elbowing someone in the head and other parts of their body. People die in football, people die in gymnastics, people die in cheerleading, but I think some people aren't realistic with it or don't want to confront the fact that the stuff is dangerous. You sign waivers for a reason.
Right.
You can get really hurt and or die. And, no one's died in an MMA cage yet. People have died afterwards, heart attacks or other things as a result from fights. But, like, it will happen at some point. And I don't want it to happen, but it's just an inevitability. I mean, guys have been dying in boxing every year since boxing was invented. And I'm sure it's the same for Muay Thai, professional kickboxing, just everything. And even, too, sometimes some of these states that make some of these lower-level pros that are getting paid hundreds of dollars get thousands of dollars in medicals so they can pass every medical test known to man. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a purpose for that because sometimes you can catch things like a guy gets an eye exam and, he has a mostly detached retina and you catch that so he doesn't fight and potentially go blind. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Okay? But
100%.
you can make a guy take every medical test known to man. Okay? You can take a eye exam, EKG, MRI,
CAT scan,
diet test, whatever, and a dude can still go out there and take the last punch or kick he's ever going to take in his life. And like, again, I'm not wishing that on anybody, but that's a very real possibility. I mean, people want to get amped up about fighter safety and, we have to make this sport safe for fighters. And it's like, okay, let's maybe temper that a little bit. Let's make it as safe as possible for fighters. But inherently, the stuff isn't safe.
And like, I mean, I watch Joe Rogan's podcast, like everybody else in the whole world. Like he says, it's not the same thing as football. It's not the same thing as, soccer or any of the other professional sports. It is, the whole point of it, like you said, is to hurt the other person.
Yeah.
Whereas football, the point of it is to take the ball, the pigskin, into that end zone. That's it. So making that more safe makes sense. It's easier to do. But how do you take something like smashing my bones against your bones? How do you make that safe?
Yeah,
You can't.
It just gets silly, man. Like people want to. Let's ban elbows. Let's ban this submission, or
knees to a grounded opponent.
I get it, but like 12-6 elbow, because back in the day, like, people got all amped up about, seeing videos of like, karate masters and dudes like that doing this and breaking the boards and, the other confidence building stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's, all right, man, ban the 12-6 elbow. But last time I checked, it is not good for a person to, say, take a head kick right across the face and go stiff.
Yeah.
Or just take a hard right hand and go stiff.
Yeah, baseball bat across the head. That's
I mean,
pretty bad too. You're gonna take that away?
Yeah.
It's like you'll let a dude get kicked in the face, shin across his, jaw
Jawline,
and everything. You'll do that, but oh man, can't have a 12-6 elbow because that could break boards.
Oh my gosh, that is so.
It's a little silly.
That's so old school and antiquated of a rule. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
what are some of the things, Dave, that you see in your game that you wish weren't there? Like, what are some of the problems and things
obstacles?
Yeah, to what you do.
Well, on the management side, you have to deal with poaching sometimes. You have to deal with other managers or other coaches or other fighters sometimes not being quite as just realistic in terms of pay or what kind of fights their guys take or don't take. Sometimes promotion. I mean, for the most part, one of our main strengths is that we try to always keep great relationships with promotions. That's the kind of key building block to be able to develop fighters and bring them up and eventually get them to the point to where they matriculate up into a higher level promotion.
Right.
Sometimes you deal with promotions though who are a little bit unrealistic or just want to pay guys or structure things contractually in a way that just doesn't really make sense. Sometimes I have to tell them, hey, your contract is pretty much instantly invalid because it can be interpreted in all these different ways because you don't have your stuff buttoned up. So could you please maybe like clean that up a little bit? So
go to a lawyer.
That way there isn't, or sometimes I'll send them the language that they should have, and just be like, hey, this contract and how you pay guys can be interpreted in several different ways. Let's clean this up so that way, like,
There's
it's
no question
clear
about-
because, and sometimes I've done it in a nice way because I'm just like, listen, how you read this contract, I can bang you over the head and get you to pay several times what you think you're going to pay this guy. Because if I bring your contract to a commission, if we're having a dispute over what payment should be, like, you have openings in your own contract that could allow me to, like, gas you for several times what you actually think you're supposed to pay this guy.
but instead of doing that, Dave realizes, and this is the thing, Dave's got the long view. He doesn't have the short. He's not short-sighted going, let me screw everybody that I can that gives me the opening, because you wouldn't be in the business very long after that, would you?
I mean, it's like you want to, with promotions or just other people, whenever there's a willingness on the other side to have it happen, you want to kind of have positive relationships with people and build, good relationships and maintain those. The stuff is very relationship based. If everyone thinks you're a dick and no one wants to talk to you or work with you, it's going to be really tough.
It's for you to make any kind of money because you're not working. So what? Now, without naming names, obviously you don't have to do that. But what is one of the worst situations where you either did get screwed or somebody tried to screw you?
I've had several people try to make a run at some guys that we were working with over time and try to poach guys. That never really ended up amounting to much, though, and it ended up just being such a bad decision on their part too. Because my thing is that, like, again, like, do what you want. Like, you want to try to poach guys from us and stuff. Okay, cool. That's your choice to do that. You want to lie to these dudes, sell them some snake oil, and throw them a little bit of cash and make them a bunch of fantastical promises and stuff. I mean, that's fine. You can do that. But
are you going to allow back a fighter that accepted the snake oil?
Nope.
Just that's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I was going to ask about that because I didn't know how that works.
At the end of the day, this stuff needs to be based on trust and understanding. You have a contract, you have a piece of paper, you have, a contract that has, terms and considerations and everything else, time limit, renewal clauses, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I have to trust them, they have to trust us. And this stuff needs to be based on just, again, like, trust and understanding. You know what I mean? If you
it has to be mutual.
Yeah, it has to be mutual. And if you're the type of dude, or girl or, whatever, that, someone dangles a little carrot in front of you and you're just going to run off and take that every time and stuff, again, that's your choice and
loyalty. Best
of luck. But, it's like I do this full time. Brian Butler does this full time. So does Brian Hamper. And, Scott, also works with Suckerpunch and stuff, more on like the, Muay Thai and kickboxing side of things. And, he's got his job, he's got his gym, and he's got this, you know what I mean? Like, it's what I do. Like, we put our time into this stuff. So it's like, again, if you want to go and bounce and do other stuff, I mean, best of luck to you. But, I sometimes the grass seems greener, but we have a pretty good understanding of, what we do and what we have to offer. And
do you give fighters and trainers that are potentially gonna you're gonna represent? Mm-hmm. Do you give them like a what do you call it? Do you read them the riot act before you get into business with them?
Like give them the kind of scoop about hey, like, we're not gonna hold your career hostage and hold this piece of paper over you. If you want to go, you can go. But whenever you have like that, first long kind of intro conversation when you're talking and deciding to work together or not, I'll tell a guy, be like, listen, man, like, we want to work with you. We think we could do great things working with you. And when you look at a lot of the other people that we've worked with over a prolonged period of time, things have, generally speaking, ended up very good. And, guys have gotten, to a pretty high level, or just, the highest level that they could, get to,
right,
at whatever point they were at in their career,
mm-hmm.
And just, understand that if you feel you want to go a different direction, like, we're not going to, take you to court or, freeze your contract or, do some of this other crazy stuff that you hear about guys doing. Sometimes we'll let you go, but the grass isn't always greener. We're pretty confident in what we do, and we know what, is out there, and we know what we've accomplished, in the industry and stuff. So if you want to go, best of luck.
And if you go, that's it.
That's it.
You're not coming back.
Not coming back.
Wow, I like that. I like that because in business, you really have to be that way in business.
Sure.
You can't let people take advantage of you no matter what.
Yeah.
Have you ever been approached by a fighter who was looking to get out of their current contract and was looking for a different direction? And how do you handle that kind of a situation?
Yeah, sometimes you get that. Fighters will hit you up and they're unhappy with their current management situation or whatever that may be. But when it comes to that stuff, we're not really much for the poaching. We don't like to poach. We don't have to poach. At this point, we don't really even necessarily have to pitch people or whatever. For the most part, like they're coming to us. But I just tell guys, I'm like, hey, sorry to hear that. But if you're under contract with someone else, from a management perspective, I can't really talk to you, about management and stuff like that. That can get into torturous interference and stuff. But best of luck. And if you ever end up as a free agent down the road and stuff like that, reach out to me then and we can talk. But I'm not going to get into, having like a, protracted, discussion about that stuff and engineer some type of poaching situation because it's just bad vibes.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. We don't need to do that. Now, there are other management companies out there that's actually the cornerstone of their business model, which is actually pretty fucked up. But
they're just looking for those guys that are unhappy with their contracts.
Well, not even unhappy. One of the biggest management companies out there besides us. They've got some dude on there with on Facebook and Instagram and everything with a potentially fictitious name, but he's got their logo and everything, and the dude just copies and pastes the same message and sends it and is sliding up in every fighter's DMs, Facebook Messenger. They must basically just look at a UFC card and just be like, okay,
we're going to hit up
every single person that won or even lost, and just maybe we'll poach somebody from all that stuff. And it's just like, dude,
they're fishing.
If you did 2 minutes of homework at looking at most of these people, you would see that they're already under management with someone else, and it's just a bad look. They've constantly come under fire for it, publicly and privately. And, it's like, again, circling back to it, do what you want. If you want to try to poach from us, that's cool. But we have our hands in a lot of different stuff. I hope you never need anything from me.
So let's segue over because you actually came here to talk about a particular promotion, right?
Sure, yeah.
Valhalla.
Yeah, Valhalla Fighting Championships. Back in the day, you used to have Valhalla Fights. Scott Howard ran that, as did, Rick McCoy. They were all, involved in that stuff. And
Leo's competed on those.
Awesome, yeah. And
I've watched.
Yeah, and I always thought that was an awesome name, and it's always actually been a dream of mine to, have a promotion and, work with a promotion that was called Valhalla Fighting Championships. I just think it's like, it's the manliest.
It's got a good ring to it, doesn't it?
It does, and
plus the Norse themes on your tattoos.
Yeah, I've got some Viking stuff going on. Got like
I did pick up on that.
Valkyrie dragging a guy off the battlefield and some other Viking stuff, and then I got my dog Jorge sitting on a pile of skulls.
Awesome.
Dude, the flame work on there is so freaking good.
It's the one advantage of being pale as a ghost.
Dude, whoa. I gotta say something. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you're white, I tell everybody this that I tattoo. If you're white, get color, because I get a lot of guys go, no, I just want tribal, man. No, I just want black and gray. I'm like, you can have red and yellow, and I can't. Look at me. I get yellow on me or white. You can't see that on me. So
a couple, maybe 5 years, it'll just be gone,
and it'll be absolutely like less than that for me. Actually, I got this eagle. That's supposed to be white on its head. It's a bald eagle.
Yeah. That
looked like brown to me, man, because I'm brown. But I'm like, if you're white, please get color because you can. Please just take advantage of it. So Valhalla is back.
Yeah,
it's better than it was before.
Yeah, me and the promoter Brandon, we spoke with Scott and Rick, and just talked to them, and we're basically like, hey, like Valhalla Fights, kind of ceased operations, years and years ago for various reasons. And, we'd like to bring it back, but with a slightly different name, just Valhalla Fighting Championships. Had a girl, Maggie, design us an amazing logo. She's also kind of like my tattoo artist in the sense of like, I'll give ideas and I'll give references, and then what comes back is so much better than I even thought it would be. She's pretty gangster with the graphic design.
Cool. Hey, what's her name? What's her full name?
Maggie Gamry?
Yeah,
Right.
Maggie Gamry, the
Okay, yeah.
BJJ chick from used to teach a disciple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, much love to Maggie.
Yeah,
Yes.
her
If you ever need graphic work, definitely
She's-
get in touch with her.
She's the one. Okay.
mad skills. And
Yes.
so the logo is great, but I talked to them and they were cool with it. We got their blessing to kind of use that name and go forward and stuff. And Brandon, he's more kind of focused on as the promoter, just kind of working on getting the event out there, sponsorships, things of that nature. Whereas I'm matchmaking and dealing with fighters and coaches and
He's got the logistics side of it, and you've got more of the fighter man.
yeah,
and-
the fight side of it,
matchmaking.
and just putting together fights, dealing with that, getting guys' medicals in on time, and
Yeah, it's a good thing you have a team as
Yeah.
opposed to just trying to one man band that.
Herding
oh my
of the
god.
cat.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
I've pretty much run promotions single-handedly before, and that's a lot.
That's a heart
really
attack waiting to happen, or at least an ulcer.
stressful.
Oh my gosh, you kidding me?
Lots of slow jams and energy drinks and
I was gonna
coffee
say,
is needed
yeah.
for that. But yeah, no, it's gonna be nice. I'm excited for it. The first show is June 16th in Winchester, Virginia, at the Body Renew Sports Complex. This one is going to be an all amateur Muay Thai event, which I'm really excited about. We've got about 15 fights right now, probably going to get up closer to 20. My thoughts are there. Murphy's Law is really strong in this stuff. And, you see some people, and I always tell people, like, oh, yeah, man, I only book 10 fights. I'm like, man, you want to book more than that?
Hell yeah.
You start with 10, you can end up with 4.
Right.
You
That's
know,
going to be
you-
a
you
short
never- you
night.
yeah, I mean, and people are going to be pissed, so I always overbook. At worst, you have a lot of good fights.
Right.
And
Right.
and if you deal with some attrition, some injuries, fighters ghosting everybody and just disappearing off the face of the earth, and just some of this other stuff that can happen sometimes.
I've seen that a lot, by the way.
You have you have cushion to deal with that. If you book a healthy amount of fights, that way, if you have, say, 16, 17 fights, you lose a couple, you still have a very full card.
Yeah.
That's
That's still worth people's money.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You want to
You
make
know.
it worthwhile for the people that are going
yeah,
to
you
show
want
up.
to give them what they came to see, which is a lot of good fights.
Yeah.
The next event is going to be an MMA event, and the goal with this stuff is to alternate between pro-am Muay Thai and pro-am MMA events, because there's kind of a void, in Northern Virginia
For pro fights.
for pro fights,
Yeah.
in both MMA and Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And so we'll give guys a good platform, because don't get me wrong, there's some good amateur promotions all over the country, right? But if you're staying amateur and that's all you're going to do for the most part, you have these guys and they fight for you, 5, 8, 10, 15 times or more as an amateur. And then, so they go and, they're not getting paid. They're constantly fighting, constantly bleeding, all this stuff. And then they're getting ready to go pro. You're just like, oh, hey, man, well, good luck. Go fight 2 states over to see if you can get a pro fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that kind of ends up derailing a lot of guys, I think, sometimes, because
It doesn't fit into their life, first of all. To be able
Yeah,
to do
I mean-
that. They got to work too.
traveling and logistics and other stuff. Some guys are limited by that. And then also, too, just kind of the way this stuff shakes out sometimes, depending on what promotion it is, what kind of agenda they have. You're trying to make a pro debut. Let's say you're having trouble getting fights. You finally get a fight offer, and it's to fight a guy who's 3-1, 2 states away in his hometown, to where if you don't finish him, you might end up getting jobbed by the judges anyway.
Yeah.
That's a tough road. At the end of the day, like, we just want to give guys a good platform to be able to, fight and progress at whatever point their career is, for whatever their level is going to be. Like, that's a common misconception, that everyone's going to make it to the UFC and stuff. Like, I loved playing football. I enjoyed it very much. I was never going to play for the New York Giants. Not even close, unfortunately. So, and that applies to this stuff too,
Absolutely.
and it's like,
And that's a reality that a lot of people don't
Oh
necessarily.
my
always
God,
They don't wanna
it's
believe it.
ridiculous.
They
Yeah,
don't wanna believe it, man.
Everyone wants to make it to the UFC, and I've watched some of your other shows, and I know that like some people who've come on here, or you or other people, might not be the biggest fans of Conor McGregor and stuff, but he's done some good things, for the sport. And some not so good things, but you get these dudes trying to act like they're Conor McGregor and they're still an amateur, or maybe they have a couple of pro fights, maybe they have a little bit more pro fights, and sometimes the record really isn't there. And everyone's talking about, oh, he has to go through me, and he's not relevant without me, and like some of this other like just delusional shit, and it's like some of these dudes, I'm just like, man, just fight, man, especially as an amateur. Like, there are some really good examples of this, but, like, I've seen guys who had these amazing amateur records, 12-1 amateur record, and they ended up with completely upside-down records as a pro because they never really fought anyone as an amateur. They were constantly trying to, just protect their record.
Their record.
The coaches were trying to protect their record, as if your amateur record means hardly
Squat.
anything.
Yeah.
Once you go pro, it means nothing. They never challenged themselves. So the first time they ever really had like a really legit test was when they're pro. Yeah. And I've seen guys who had pimp-tastic amateur records end up with completely upside down records as a pro.
That's like, do you want to have somebody that was 10-0 as an amateur versus a 3-2 guy amateur that fought all studs?
Yeah, or
so
like look at a guy like I mean, dude, a great example of this. Something I reference all the time. Kenny Gaudreau, like,
love Kenny.
That dude went on a really lengthy losing streak as an amateur for a while. Yeah. Like I think honestly his amateur record is either like right around 500 or maybe even slightly upside down. I don't know.
I think it was right around 500.
It was right around 500.
He was on the winning side of the 500.
Yeah. But I mean, he took a lot of scraps.
Yep.
And he was taking a lot of fights when he was in the military and maybe wasn't getting the best training and all this other stuff. But like he took fights, he took scraps, he fought a lot of he fought tough dudes, and now like Kenny is 10-5 as a pro, and I mean he just knocked out like a Renzo Gracie black belt with elbows of doom. Yeah, this dude's a black belt, training at Renzo Gracie's every day, and Kenny
had him in the rear naked,
knocked him unconscious with elbows, and finished a really good dude, really good credentials, and a good record. Yeah. And again, you look at Kenny's amateur record, I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but he had a lot of experience, he fought a lot of tough dudes, and like, win or lose, at this point, Kenny is seasoned. He's been in wars before. He's been tested. He had a fight with this dude at a Fire and Ice show a couple of years ago. This guy, Ivan Del Valle, who's now in prison for life.
Jeez.
But
tax evasion?
You don't go to prison for life for tax evasion.
Messing with underage girls.
Oh, yeah. Why is that? That is such a big thing.
Yeah, it's a girl at the gym that he was an instructor at, and just that whole thing.
Apparently, that's starting to come out to be very common.
There's been a lot of cases of that, coming out like the last couple of years. But the fight that not to take away from anything Kenny did, but like the fight that Kenny had with that guy, because that guy's tough, pretty solid, lifelong martial artist. That was a dog fight. That was a really good fight, though. And like Kenny was seasoned. The guy would get him in bad positions. Kenny would get on top again. Just hit hard ground and pound, hard shots, elbows, just like, it was an awesome fight to watch. And Kenny, like, that's like stuff that you see from like a real pro, getting in bad positions, and he doesn't just like freeze up and panic.
You can tell the difference, can't you?
Yeah.
I mean, even the layman.
Yeah.
If you put in front of them somebody who, like you said, just sits there and prays, and then somebody who's constantly working, like for instance, let's bring Bad Boy back. Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
I watched Conor McGregor's earliest fights, man, and everybody can see this guy is eventually going to be top.
Some guys you can just tell. And then other guys you maybe wouldn't expect it, but they end up kind of turning it on later. Yeah.
So Dave, are you saying that if you're gonna do the amateur thing, then you really should be if you're gonna do the amateur thing, then you really should be using that time to fight difficult fights?
Yeah, I mean, get experience. I mean, obviously, if you're making your pro debut, I wouldn't recommend not your pro debut, your amateur debut. I wouldn't recommend you debuting against a dude who's 8-0 as an amateur. I mean, that's just not a good idea. But, you know, after you kind of get your feet wet, get a couple of fights, like just start taking fights, man, compete. You know, take challenging fights, you know, so that way you get that experience. You know, you've been in, you know, some back and forth fights, you've been in wars, and you know that you can come out of that okay. As opposed to, I've seen it with some guys, they have those, you know, these padded, manicured amateur records, and they start to get in a fight against a dude who's just a dog, and they just, it's
Crumble.
like deer in the headlights, and you can just see it, and they just like crumble. You know, the UFC does not give two shits about your amateur record. They don't.
They really don't care.
Does not matter. I mean, the only way it matters is just if you're such a stud that, you know, like there's one kid who's fighting on the Contender Series coming up. You know, the guy was undefeated as an amateur boxer, as an amateur Muay Thai fighter, as an amateur MMA fighter, had all these amateur boxing fights, and then he was undefeated as a pro too. So, you know, you kind of lump all that in together.
You know, that's kind of like in football where usually they look at college, but sometimes you got a stud. They go, this guy's been a stud since high school.
Yeah.
And they'll look at that.
Yeah, and then or they look at a guy's like combine stats or something like that, and they're just like, oh man. But you know, I think I've seen more success with dudes who took challenging fights as amateurs than when they went, you know, and moved up to the pro level. They were seasoned, you know, fought some tough guys, can deal with competition. You know, and I've seen plenty of dudes have padded amateur records, and it rarely ends up very good once they go pro.
You know,
Very rarely.
just talking to you, Dave, I can tell, man, you are this is what you do, and you've got a lot of like knowledge and wisdom in this thing.
Thank you.
So do you guys have like an internship program for guys, you know, gals that actually want to get into this line of work?
I mean, not really. It's something that's been tossed around before, but it's just, I don't know. It's kind of tough. I mean, this stuff is kind of relationship based and stuff. So it's like if you're coming in and you don't have any of those relationships or experiences and stuff, you'd kind of have to be like handheld through things. And,
Right.
you know,
Like they
I
would
wouldn't do
shadow you or something?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it more an internship rather than an apprenticeship.
Yeah, kind of. You
It
know,
would have to be in that kind of manner because
Yeah.
you're right. This is a lot of his relationship building, being in the fight community, knowing what fighters go through, having an understanding of that world.
Yeah.
It's not just about, you know, like how to market, how to get these guys, you know, how to match make and all that stuff. In any case, in order to be able to do any of that, you have to have been ingrained in it to some degree. You have to see
Well,
it. You have to.
let me ask you this then: because we're talking to people that, you know, are hearing Dave's story and kind of what he does, and they're like, I want to get into that, right? So what's a good background? Like if somebody's going to school, right? What are some things like should they be, you know, have a business background? Should they have a marketing like what kind of background works best?
I mean, those things can help in different areas, you know, when it comes to, you know, sponsorships and endorsements or advertising, things of that nature. But, you know, when it comes to the actual fight side of things and stuff, I mean, I don't know, the best advice I could give to somebody is, you know, a lot of people like Sam Kaplan, who's a longtime matchmaker for Bellator, he started out as a journalist. But just he got access to promotions. He talked to a lot of people, kind of went from there. I mean, that's, you know, way back in the day. That's what I did too.
In journalism.
Yeah, and just like, you know, writing about fights. And
Who did
know,
you used to
stuff
write
like
for?
that. I did some pieces for a couple different websites, and also ran my own website back in the day that was called the Doombeard Report.
Oh, that's right. I do remember reading some articles from there.
And-
Yes.
And he still has the beard, everybody.
Yes.
It's
not as big as it used to be.
Nah,
I remember
my
it
beard
being
used
a lot
to be a lot
bigger.
longer.
Okay.
At one point, I had a beard that was like that.
Yeah,
here.
that's what I remember.
You know, but Doombeard is my nickname. People, you know, everyone at the first, you know, couple of gyms that like I trained at, everyone wanted to give me some type of nickname that like had something to do with my beard. And someone was like, "Oh, what about the Beard of Doom?" And you know, I was like, "Oh, it's cool," but you know, Kirk Winstein, who's the singer and one of the guitarists in Crowbar, he's also a guitarist in Down, which is like a New Orleans heavy metal super group and stuff. You know, that's his name. You know, that's his nickname. He's the Beard of Doom. You know, and he's like my inspiration for growing a long beard. You know, he's just a, you know, shorter Cajun dude, long gray beard down to here. Just awesome, total man shit. You know,
That works in Richmond too, man.
yeah. You know, I mean,
Richmond's kind of like it's artistic, but it's also got like a very hard edge to it. As
oh
well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You see, I would have thought that he got that nickname from his bounty hunting days. Can I talk about that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just make you gave me a look like, don't talk about that.
Nah,
So you were a bounty hunter for a while?
yeah, yeah. I got into that stuff. Everyone wants to draw the comparisons to like
Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Oh, fuck.
So you're racist, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not a racist. I'm not, a felon. I don't run around with a little pepper ball gun. I mean, Dog has a pretty legit mullet. I'll give him that.
Super legit.
So does his wife.
Yes, they both do.
But other than that, like that's just goofy as shit. But yeah. I mean, I did that for a really long time. Got out of that recently, but I wouldn't really, you have your different levels of stuff. You have your person who fails to appear and ends up becoming a fugitive because they didn't go to court for a DUI or like some like lower level like stupid shit like that. Like that's not really worth it,
Right.
Because what you're gonna get off of bringing that person in isn't really worth, like the juice isn't worth the squeeze there for like the time and stuff like that it would take to do that. But if you have a guy who bounced and didn't show up to court on a much higher level charge, high bond value, high level drug charges or other things like that, to where they gave him a bond but it was pretty high, and no bondsman really wants to fork over a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars or more to the court. So then you go out and get a dude, and a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about how that stuff works. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I mean, there are plenty of people who just go door to door just trying to find guys that way and stuff like that. But the way I went about that stuff was a little different.
Really?
Yeah. So let's say you're looking for a guy and he, failed to appear on like some drug distribution charges, and, he had a $200,000 bond or something like that. You go and you grab him and you take him back in, you're getting a percentage of the value of that bond, which then the bondsman will then tack on to what that guy's unfortunate co-signers are going to have to pay him, either in cash or, forfeiture of collateral or other stuff.
Oh.
So, what I would do is, I would run a guy's stuff. There's different databases that you can use to really kind of look up information on people, find out their, family members, close friends, associates, people they've lived with, recently, other things. And you just start to take a look at that stuff, and usually you can find things that you can kind of start to shake loose. You shake the tree a little bit, find people that maybe have an issue with that person. If a guy's got baby mama drama and he owes a bunch of child support and stuff like that, that can oftentimes be a very good source of information as to where that guy is, because oftentimes if the relationship there is very bad, they'll cough it up. And I've had family members and best friends and all kinds of other stuff dime people out for often very embarrassingly low or no amount of money at all.
Really?
And then we go and you try to grab that dude and bushwhack them, or otherwise kind of just get them out of wherever they're staying. I always like to go get people in the wee hours of the morning on weekdays, because that at 3:30 a.m. at 3:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, usually someone is where they're gonna be.
Right.
Yeah.
You try to go out and find a dude on a Saturday night. There's just no point.
No, for what?
But 3:30 a.m. on a Wednesday,
Sleeping.
someone's gonna be where they're at. So you go, find out where they're gonna be. Hit that. And usually, you're able to get them out with little to no resistance or violence and stuff. And sometimes guys fight. About 10% of dudes will fight.
Have you ever had a close call?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I told the jiu-jitsu coach about it afterwards, but I remember I was at a gi jiu-jitsu class at MMA Institute in Richmond, and one of the coaches, Kevin Knudsen, he's a Richmond City police officer, and he went over just a collar choke, and about I think it was 2 weeks after that or less, we were going after this dude, and we cornered him. Found them. One of the guys that was with us kind of blocked off that back side door that's in the kitchen of a lot of older houses. And, 3 of us went in, the house, And this guy's family tried to fight us to like keep us from getting to him and stuff.
Wow.
And so two of the guys that I was with are dealing with that, and so I end up with this dude alone in the kitchen, thrown down in the kitchen, like that happens sometimes, and
Did knives come out? Like,
what?
Were
No,
knives? Okay.
thankfully, no. That time, they didn't. But this dude, he's big, like 6'3", 330, just big dude. Been in and out of prison, for a lot of his adult life, just various charges and whatnot. And so we ended up throwing down, and he was a big dude, was throwing me around like I weighed nothing, and kind of started to beat my ass a little bit. And, but when you're this close, gun, taser, anything else, that's actually more of a risk to yourself.
Yeah.
Because if they take it from you, then that's just, all kinds of bad. So I didn't mess with any of that stuff. And, he picked me up, he put me up against like the counter and stuff like that. And he hit me a couple of times, but it's just real funny, taking it back, to like the early aughts. Do you remember like those, it was like a leather jacket material, but like they would be like these jackets that looked like leather jackets, but it'd be like M&M's Racing.
Yes,
or,
yes, yeah,
like
yeah.
like the stuff that you get at like a Rugged Warehouse or like an Echo store back when those used to be around.
Had like the leather sleeves.
But it was like the same material and style as like a high school leather jacket.
Yeah.
He was wearing one of those jackets. And so, he had me up, up on the counter and stuff like that. He'd hit me a couple of times, and I just got deep on that collar choke and stuff like that, got back to my feet, turned him around, put him up against, the counter and stuff like that, just tripped him, took him to the ground, was on top of him, and he never tried to break my grip. He just squeezed. You know what I mean? Just squeezing the shit out of my forearms, which, he had a pretty good squeeze, but that's not going to stop me, once I have that just, locked in. And what was funny is this again shows like the accessibility of like MMA and stuff like that, and just like how a lot of people have seen it. Right before this dude went out, he started tapping on my forearm, and he was like, all right. And I just told him, I was like, nope. And
You're going out.
I put him to sleep, and I rolled him over, put a waist chain around him, put the ankle bracelets on him, linked him with another chain, and then I lifted his legs up to wake him up. So he woke up fully restrained, to where even with how big he was, all he was really going to be able to do is just kind of shuffle around like that. But that was,
wow.
Whether or not like weapons were involved or anything else, that was actually the time where I was like, kind of had like that fear with like, okay, like, is this dude gonna like beat me to death?
Right.
Or
is this
whatever.
it?
And
so your adrenaline was going.
And then I hit that collar choke, like, and it was just like, and I had done that in that gi class, less than 2 weeks beforehand and stuff like that.
You just learned it.
Memory just, just hit it on him. And jiu-jitsu saved my life.
Does everybody hear that, man? You're starting to see videos on Facebook of cops that actually do understand jiu-jitsu, and it's changing the game.
Yeah.
Of course, more funny. Sorry, cops. I love cops, but more funny is when they don't, and then the guy is just like wiggling around and. But yeah, learn jiu-jitsu. Please learn. If you're in that situation or gonna be, please learn jiu-jitsu. Save your life.
Yeah, and it was real funny. I was talking to Scott and Brandon about this earlier today. That after that, the dude, he had been put out. I just put him out. So after that, he was a little loopy and stuff, and he just kept going back to the same thing. He was like, "Man, you didn't have to do me like that.
Me like that."
And I was just like, "Listen, bro, if I would have let go, would you have stopped trying to beat my ass?" And he was like, "Nah, man, but still, you didn't have to do me like that, man." And I was just like, "All right, dude, whatever."
Yeah, you pulled his man card on that one.
And just
that's a bad feeling, bro. That's one thing. The Gracies, the Gracies are like nothing worse than going to sleep in the fight, because after you go to sleep, anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean that was just, thankfully he had no concept of jiu-jitsu or anything.
Well, he knew how to tap.
He knew that, and I was like, dude, I'm not. This is a real life situation, man. There's no ref in here to stop things. I'm not letting go.
John McCarthy is not going to come to save your ass.
You're gonna go to sleep.
You're going to sleep, buddy.
And you're not gonna beat my ass anymore.
So what that was a great story, but thank you for that.
Sure.
What else do we have on the docket here? Because we're hitting about 15 minutes left on the show.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you
might
about.
need to extend that a little bit.
Yeah.
Still got a couple things to touch on, I guess.
Yeah.
We can, and you know what? We can always
Do like a second thing.
yeah, I can actually switch.
Follow-up show.
No, I mean I can switch my cards out.
Yeah.
And then we can
Still
just
a-
continue.
I mean, let's just do that because we got a lot of good things we can hit, man.
Okay. All right.
I got time.
Let's do your question, and then after we get that, then let's switch it up.
So one of the things that I want to talk about was weight cuts and
Yeah.
making sure that guys are being safe about them and whatnot. From a management perspective, and even now from a promotional perspective, how do you see any good alternatives to managing that and making sure that everybody's being safe about how they go about doing some of this stuff?
Yeah, so there's a couple layers to that really, and it applies to both like the management side as well as like promotionally what you try to do with weight cuts and stuff like that. I think at this point it is commonly accepted knowledge that trying to cut 45, 50 pounds for a fight is not a good idea, especially when you have blows to the head involved.
Yeah.
When you're in a dehydrated state and you're taking blows to the head, it's even worse than it would normally otherwise be with a fully hydrated brain.
Yep.
But you want to make sure that a guy's not cutting just inordinate amounts of weight. That's just not good for anybody. And even if you do, I think, and I've seen it, and you're starting to see kind of a shift, at a higher level and at the lower levels now too. Just because you can actually physically make or get close to a certain weight doesn't always mean that it's a good idea, because you can go and you can cut 45, 50 pounds, but if you feel like shit and you perform like shit and you're very tentative in your fight because you're like just really paranoid and terrified of how bad your gas tank is probably going to be because you still feel like shit from this hellacious weight cut you put yourself through, that's not a plus.
Right.
Like that doesn't benefit you in any way. It's actually a detriment to you, and pretty much across the board at that point, because it even manifests itself in your fight and negatively impacts how you can perform. So you want to make sure that guys aren't cutting just crazy amounts of weight, and just, not everything weight class wise needs to be based on height and reach. Just because you're a certain height doesn't mean that you should say necessarily be a 55er. If you have to cut way too much weight, or just your body doesn't respond well to it, even if you're working with a good nutritionist or whatever, like a guy like Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, that dude, I don't even think he's 6 feet tall, but he's kicking ass at middleweight. But he was killing himself trying to cut down to 70, and it just wasn't working out. And now he's cutting.
I saw his performance with Cowboy when he fought Cowboy.
And like Kelvin Gastelum has been knocking people out and doing very well at middleweight, and just a lot healthier, and you're starting to see a lot of guys at a higher level. Some of it has to do with USADA and, in more enhanced testing for PEDs, because some guys could do certain, performance enhancing drugs or steroids or whatever that would help you, keep strength and muscle mass, but like dehydrate you and shed water weight and everything. Right. And you saw a lot of changes in physiques in the like year, 2 years after USADA came around. A lot of dudes who, previously, people talk about when you have like massive weight loss and fitness journeys, people are talking about, from pud to stud. Once USADA came around, you had the opposite of that. It was
stud
to pud. And
Yeah.
you had, people making fun of certain guys saying that they had like a dad bod and stuff like that, when like, a year before they looked like a Greek god.
Yeah.
Who I'm thinking of? One of my heroes, one of the first guys I started following. Vitor Belfort.
Yeah, TRT Vitor Belfort was very entertaining.
Yes.
But, it's just like the guy's in his mid to late 30s looking like he should be carved out of stone, in better shape than these dudes 10 years younger that he's fighting and just going out and hurting people. I was always a big fan when I first found MMA. I was a huge Tank Abbott fan, which
it's the beard.
Like Tank was just this big biker dude who would just like go out and viciously knock people out. And if a guy took him down and submitted him, like he was like, oh, whatever. I don't really count it as a loss because that guy was too much of a pussy to
Stand up with me.
So whatever. You know?
There was a fight with him and Cabbage Correa.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh.
They did it twice, I think. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, let me ask you this. So
sure.
that's the one side of people cutting too much weight. And not, and now, recently,
yeah.
in at least in the UFC, there have been a string of people that would, it almost looks intentionally
Screwing the pooch, yeah.
Yes, missing weight by larger
Yeah.
amounts. Not like they're not missing it by a half pound, pound and a half, 2 pounds, 3 pounds even. We're talking like 8, 6, 8, 12, 2-digit numbers that they're missing weight, and still going in to fight.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that?
All right. So, kind of like you mentioned, and like, if a guy misses by like half a pound or two, and you see that, he's dying, he's hurting, whatever, that's one thing. Sometimes you can miscalculate your weight cut when you're cutting your weight, and a lot of guys, you can run into issues with that because, and understandably so, some guys will want to be depleted for the least amount of time possible.
Right.
So they save most of their weight cut until the 11th hour, pretty much, right? So a half a pound or 2 pounds, that can be truly a miscalculation at some point, or your body shutting down, whatever. But, when you're showing up 5, 7, 8, 10 or more pounds overweight, you knew what was going on. The coaches knew what was going on. If they didn't, then they're not on top of their shit. Because how can you have a dude who you're like, oh, I'm the coach, I'm your trainer. You're gonna take credit for all the good shit they do.
Yeah.
But then
You gotta be accountable for
all
the bad
of a
shit,
sudden
too.
at weigh-ins when your dude shows up 9
what
pounds
happened?
overweight, you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm just the coach. Blah, blah, blah. And at a weigh-in earlier this year down in Florida, we had a dude who showed up. He was supposed to fight at 85, and he showed up at 94.5.
Whoa.
And, and the fight ended up not happening just because the spread was too much. And, but he was like, hey, I'm just the coach. And I was like, well, then you aren't shit, dude. What are you doing? How do you not know that, at best, your guy is going to show up 10 pounds above the contracted weight? When you screw the pooch and you miss by that much, it's really a form of calculated cheating, because it's almost like punting in football. Sam Kaplan says that a lot. It's like, oh, hey man, we can't make it work, so we're just going to fucking hand it off to you and put it on you. And it's it's really messed up, because when people do that, they show up and they're just crazy overweight compared to, what
depleted
the
fighter,
contracted the contracted weight was and what the other fighter made the weight, and then you're 8 pounds over or something. You intentionally screwed the pooch. It's really like calculated cheating. You knew what you were gonna do. Your coaches knew what you're gonna do.
And you're just hoping that the fight continues.
And basically, you show up crazy heavy, and your hope in that situation is that you still have the weight advantage. You don't have to suffer through the weight cut, or you just screwed up so bad that it was just never going to be possible to begin with. And you then hope that you take as little of a haircut as possible in terms of how
much money you get,
how much money you forfeit. And then you try to go into the fight already having a pretty significant weight advantage. I'll give you 2 examples of that happening, one at a lower level and one at a higher level. The one that a lot of people want to talk about recently is the whole Mackenzie Dern thing.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to mention that.
She was pretty much a flyweight competing in a strawweight fight, because she missed weight by a bunch, and that was after the 1 pound allowance that she already had. So, she weighed in at 123.5. She's practically a legit flyweight pretty much, and she fought a girl who made 115. And you could tell in the cage that there was 1.5 to 2 weight classes realistically in between them. It looked like some crazy stuff that you'd see on the regional scene sometimes, just a total mismatch or something. In terms of size, and then and it played out in the fight, accordingly, because Mackenzie Dern was just considerably bigger. So, she was hitting harder than, your average.
She's got weight behind her punches.
Yeah, a lot more weight behind her punches. And then, especially she's a really accomplished grappler. She got on top, way bigger than Amanda Bobby Cooper. And personally, I talked with Brian Hamper about this when all that stuff was playing out. Had we been working with Amanda Bobby Cooper, we just would have been no, there's no fight.
No fight.
You need to learn a lesson. You know, like you agreed to a certain fight weight for a reason. You're pretty much a whole weight class heavier. There are some states in the United States that wouldn't have even allowed them the option to have that
Right.
fight because
But
the way.
based on the disparity,
Yeah, but
you
because
can't
it
even-
was in Brazil and the Brazilian Athletic Commission is essentially completely
He just put up the quote unquote sign there.
the Brazilian
quotes.
Athletic Commission is pretty much, entirely beholden to the UFC in any kind of situation to where, they let that happen because the UFC wanted the fight to happen.
And her coaches felt pressured to get that to happen.
And I think they just thought, oh, well, hey, she did an interview after and she's like, oh, I'm expecting a broken Mackenzie Dern and all this other stuff, which was, just a bunch of fantastical BS because she wasn't broken. She didn't even get close to making weight, and she looked pretty fresh and looked like she was feeling pretty good the day of the fight. And, Amanda Cooper got crushed, and she only gave up like 20 or 30% of her purse, which if that was, just that much of a spread, that's just crazy. But even if she was a little closer and stuff like that, if it was us, I would have taken considerably more money than that. At a local level, I had a guy who was supposed to compete at 125, flyweight for men. Friday fight, Thursday weigh-in. Okay. I get a call Monday evening from the promotion. They're like, hey, his opponent, they want to know if you can do 135. And I'm like,
nope.
No. Like, nope. Signed for flyweight at 125, like that. You want to up the weight by 10 pounds on 2 days notice before weigh-ins, essentially? Like, nah. I was like, the most we'll do is maybe 130. But like this guy, Victor Flores, like he's a true flyweight. He's a 125-pound fighter.
That's what he pretty much walks around.
Well, he doesn't really cut much. He's a real flyweight. I don't think he even walks at like above maybe like 140 tops with clothes. So like,
yeah.
So I told that to the promotion. They're like, all right, well, I don't know if we're gonna make the fight happen. I'm like, okay, fine. And
but that's a double-edged sword. You are protecting your fighter, but it's also tough for them to have to.
Yeah, and so I just told our guy, hey, let's just see what happens. I told them that we'll come up to like 130 or something, but it has to be reasonable. So they wanted to him and Haw for like a day and change, and like this, the dude who he was fighting and the guy's coach is just a complete and total turd burglar and doesn't have a good understanding of just like the leverage and other situations at play here. So they come back like a day and some change later or something like that, and they're like, oh well, what about if we do like 133? And I was just like tired of just them asking the same stupid questions that I was going to give them the same answer to, which was no. So I basically wrote out an addendum to what the contract was myself, and I was like, all right, this isn't a starting point for anything. If you want this fight to happen, here's what we're going to do. We can meet at a 130 catch. I'm going to take 55% of your purse right out the gate because I know you're going to be mad heavy.
Yeah.
So whatever your purse was,
cut it by
we're
55%.
taking 55% right out the gate. Just boom. And if you miss weight the day of weigh-ins, that goes up to 70%.
Damn.
Jeez.
And we want you to weigh in the evening of the fight. Don't want you to gain more than 8 pounds. And if you gain more than 8 pounds, that goes up to 90%.
Wow. So you'd basically be fighting for free.
And the homeboy showed up a couple pounds over the catch, which I had a suspicion that was going to happen. So, went up to 70, and then he missed weight. Didn't even give a shit, really, the night of. And so that went up to 90%.
Oh, okay.
But I told our guy, I'm like, listen, I can take as much money as possible from this dude. But once you agree to the fight and you get in there, you can take as much money as you can, but there's nothing that can be done in the cage to reward you or compensate you or help you out for the fact that you're going to be the lighter fighter. There's nothing that you can do in the fight to mitigate that. It just is what it is. You're going to have to go in knowing that you're potentially going to be at a little bit of a size disadvantage. That's kind of the compromise you have to make with that. But, I was the promotion wanted to get us all on a conference call. So I was on a conference call with, the promoter, the matchmaker, and like this, and I was just talking to them, and I'm like, listen, and I think they had the other guy's coach on there too. If he was on there, he didn't say much. I don't remember that part, but I just said, I was like, listen, all right, you got this kid. He's local there. My guy, Vic, is coming from across the state, from, ATT and Coconut Creek to fight in Tampa. If this dude doesn't want to agree to the terms that we'll do, then fight falls through. I'll get my guy another fight, no problem. But you're going to screw over your local promoter because you screwed the pooch and you knew weeks and weeks in advance you probably were not even going to get close to making 125. The promoter shouldn't refund your tickets because you caused that situation, and so, all these people who bought tickets or tables or from you online or whatever, they might not get their tickets back, and then you're going to have to explain that. Or even if they did get their tickets back, these people, they buy tickets from you, maybe they can't get the refund in time or something like that. And then you end up not fighting. Like, that's going to be on you. You're going to screw the pooch with the only local promotion and you're part of the state. So you have no leverage. There's no negotiation here. Like, you either take these terms or there's no fight, and you're going to be left in a very, very, very bad situation with the only promoter in your region. So if that's what you want to do, then cool, or you can take those terms and just understand that you're fighting more for an opportunity to fight at this point and not, for some money that you thought you were
Dave
gonna
is
make.
good, man. Dave is good, bro.
That's kind of ruthless.
That is gangster.
It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
And to flip, the script a little bit. I've never had it, but if we, our guys are pretty, usually pretty professional and on point with that stuff. But if I ever had a dude that just screwed the pooch weight wise, I'd just tell him, like, dude, if it was me, there's no mercy. You know what I mean? Like, you have no leverage. The best you can hope for is that they don't try to take it all from you and you can still fight. But if you show up and you screw the pooch like that and you destabilize that situation, you just need to be prepared for whatever comes, whether you fight or not, and just kind of hope for the best. But it's like, ultimately, if you knew that you were going to miss weight or something like that, or you needed to make an adjustment, let people know in advance so you can figure that stuff out. Or if it's not going to work, the promotion can find someone else who can actually make that weight. Because when you show up on weigh-in day, like another good example is, remember Kenny Gaudreau was supposed to fight for the
Fire and Ice
welterweight title.
Yes.
And his opponent, total stud, showed up at 187.5 pounds for a welterweight title fight that he was supposed to make 170. So he didn't even make middleweight. And his coach was just like, "Oh, we're still trying to fight." And like, I had to get Scott Howard to calm down because he was really upset. And I was just like, "All right, guys, listen, let's try to calm down here and stuff." But the guy, it's like, again, the guy screwed the pooch. And I heard from people once I got there that dude was like sitting in the sauna for like 30 seconds at a time and then going back out. And like, the dude just, looked like he hadn't really been training or doing much leading up to that besides like drinking Bud Light. And it's like when you miss weight for a pro title fight by 17 and a half pounds,
That is not professional.
it's like, man,
That's pretty
like
bad.
that's rough.
You should know better.
And
You should know better.
what's funny is he ended up fighting the next day because we had another guy for a pro fight. His opponent just straight up like no-showed. Just,
Ghosted, yeah.
Ghosted us. Didn't pick up the phone, went straight to voicemail, just deactivated his Facebook, just,
Disappeared off the face of the
so
earth.
FBI witness protection.
this one guy was so heavy, but because this other guy who was around his weight had an opponent that didn't show up and they actually had similar records, this dude and Willie Floyd ended up fighting the next day at like a 200-pound catch weight or whatever. And
remember that.
they mixed it up pretty well for about 2 minutes.
Okay.
And then the other guy
Willie
who
just started to
screwed
run away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you saw the other dude, Anthony Lemon, like his gas tank went from like full to empty almost immediately, and then just Willie just pieced him up, and I was pretty happy to see that.
He got his comeuppance, right?
Yeah, but yeah, so it's just kind of circling back. When guys miss weight by that much, like it's just like, dude, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know in advance that like you're gonna show up crazy heavy, and just try to game the system and take as little of a haircut as possible. And it's just that's just really wrong.
I
not
love
cool,
the
man.
folks that'll pull the, well, do you still want to fight or not?
Yeah,
if you're
like,
a fighter, you still want to fight. You should still want to fight.
Oh,
Still
you-
want to fight, man?
Come
And it's
on.
just like, oh well, thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, listen, guys. We're actually about to hit a 1 millisecond break to you guys, to the fight game fans that are watching this. It's going to be literally 1 millisecond after I turn. Well, I'll clap and it'll be 1 millisecond, and then we'll be right back on. But what we're going to do is we're going to change cards out, and we're going to go in the second half of our show. Okay, we've got some questions prepared from my man Dave, so please stay tuned. You only have to wait a second. All right. See, guys, I told you it wouldn't take long. Half a millisecond. That's not very long at all. Well, we're back, and we're about to hit the second half and the final part of the show, where we're going to get down and dirty here and really talk about the real stuff. So we've got Dave here, and the difference between Dave and some of the other guys, we've had the most. This is episode 8? Fight Game Podcast, episode 8. We've had the most. I cannot say enough good things. Like, you guys don't realize, because some of you guys are watching from, other states and other parts of the world. You don't realize how awesome our guests are. Like they're legendary. Let's put it that way. We got a guy here though that has seen all that stuff, but he's in a different place as far as like his role. So when you own a gym or school, or if you're a promoter, say, you've got to be really careful about what you say, because again, it's all relationship based, you know. And Dave, he's in that world too. But the thing is, Dave can be a lot more forthcoming with what the problems are and what needs to change in order to make sure that we go ahead. The fight game goes ahead in general in this area, at least in the DC Metro, Virginia area, and everywhere else Suckerpunch is at. Make sure that it's being done correctly, done right. The fighters aren't getting screwed. Promoters aren't getting screwed, and there's problems there that need to be fixed. And I think Dave is going to be able to kind of open your eyes to what are these issues. So wherever you are in the fight game, wherever you want to be, I think this is going to be really helpful for you. So let's get that underway, okay?
So going into, we were just talking about the weight cut thing and how coaches either manage or mismanage how they do that with their fighters and how things like that happen. I want to hear your thoughts on how coaches and their attitudes about their fighters and how they handle them from a promotional standpoint and from like an actual management standpoint. How does that translate to you when you see it?
Yeah, and those two things can actually intersect, because whether you're talking about things from a promotional standpoint and a promotions interaction with a fighter and his trainers and stuff, or if it's on the management or coaching side when you're trying to get a fight for your fighter and match them up against someone else, some of those same issues come into play with that too.
Okay.
So I think that you have a lot of coaches that have a very like healthy view of just how to kind of go about things, right? Like you get your amateur career, you get the experience and stuff like that, and then you move on from there, right? That's a pretty proven formula. And then you have some fighters, and some of them don't have good coaches around them. Some of them no coaches around them, really. They just kind of hop around and train a little bit here, train a little bit there, and try to piece things together as much as possible, and then just kind of show up for fights. And then you get some guys who are at a gym full time, and they have coaches and trainers who know them and have worked with them for a long time. You have some people who are in touch with where their guys are at. And also in touch with just the reality of where their guys at and the sport and just the world and other stuff. Then you have some guys who aren't, and it's like, again, I'll circle back to what I said earlier. Like, I liked playing football, but unfortunately I was never gonna play middle linebacker for the New York Giants. It's just not meant to be, not even close. And it's like, it's both a good thing and every now and again a bad thing. But for the most part, it's a good thing that, for combat sports, there isn't the same barrier to entry that there can be to other sports, it's like in football or some other sports, there's a kind of an established track, right? Like you have your youth league sports, and then you have your, middle school and high school sports, and then college, and that tends to be kind of like the, pretty established track of where guys go to then, ideally, at the top of the pyramid, essentially get, up to the professional level.
Right.
Whereas, technically, you could get a dude who maybe all he did was just kind of hang out and watch anime, but then he happens upon an MMA gym, and finds that he likes it, and he really gets going, and it turns out that dude is just a total, anime nerd, which not knocking nerds at all. I'm a massive nerd. I have a whole room in my house dedicated to nothing but all of like my Warhammer that I have, and then I have another room for like all my guns and stuff. But,
Nice.
like it's,
balances it out.
yeah, there's different spheres of nerddom, I guess. But like, you could have a guy who has no background athletically or whatsoever, but like he just finds a gym, and some of those guys end up in the UFC, but because like they just, sometimes like some really nerdy guys end up becoming good fighters, but that's a separate issue. But it's just the dedication and just like the ability to commit to that stuff. But you could have a guy who has no organized sport background. Maybe a lot of guys do, but let's just say he doesn't. But there's nothing actually stopping him from becoming an amateur fighter. And then if he does well there, he could become a professional fighter and make his way up. And that's a good thing. That's cool. That's an awesome thing that a guy who's maybe he's 18, 20 years old or something and had never really done anything athletically can just go and walk into a gym one day and then, time warp 7 years down the line and
He's a stud.
A stud making a UFC debut.
And it's like, you got all the different weight classes, so you don't have that against you. In football, if you're not,
if you're
huge,
not big and you're not fast, it ain't kind of going to be tough. But so that's a good thing. That's in one aspect of it, it's a good thing that there is no barrier to entry,
right?
For that stuff. Ditto for trainers. You have some guys who maybe they weren't going to be the best fighters, but they end up becoming great trainers. You have some guys who maybe they weren't going to be.
You? Yeah, it's
maybe
Super Coach Paul over here.
And then you have some guys who have no real background in any kind of martial arts or combat sports, and they end up training guys somehow, and it's all kind of a very strange situation how that works out. But the bad side to it is that anyone can get into this stuff, okay? Anyone can get into mixed martial arts, or you find a gym, you train, you get fights on promotions as an amateur for MMA or for Muay Thai or whatever. But it is still up to you to work on progressing skill wise and experience wise, and kind of working your way up. And if years down the line you end up and you're 4-9 as a professional MMA fighter. There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. If you want to keep fighting. But just maybe have a realistic understanding that you're probably not getting to the UFC at that point ever. And, you get guys who they get to that point record-wise or close to it anyway, and they're just, they'll hit me with stuff like, oh, man, I'm just trying to, get a whole bunch of easy fights and string a bunch of wins together, and so I can get to Bellator or the UFC or something like that. And I'm just like, dude, you don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you're getting punished and losing, sometimes badly and violently, to crowds of a couple hundred people or 1,000 people. Let's just say I've told this exact thing that I'm getting ready to tell you guys, like this whole shtick. It's gonna sound practiced because it is, because I've in some circumstances where I was just like, all right, this guy's coaches or other people around him aren't gonna be realistic with this dude,
right?
So I'm not gonna be disrespectful about it, but for his own good,
I need to give you the real of it.
I'm like, all right, let's just say for the sake of argument that I somehow found 15 corpses for you to beat up on or something, and you somehow get this artificially
fabricated 15
record, and then all of a sudden now you're 20-9 or something. Let's just say we do that. All right, and let's just say somehow sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust on you, and bamboozle some people and get you into a higher level promotion. You are going to get murdered.
Murdered.
Like, you are skipping so many levels of competition that, like, just because on paper it would make sense that you should be in a higher level promotion, you actually have to get in there and, like, fight that dude or woman. And it's the equivalent of, like, taking a below average high school football player. You're like, hey, bro, like, I know you like wearing your NFL jerseys and stuff. That's great, cool. Why don't you go and put on this jersey? And you're a Washington Redskin now, and let's have you catch passes across the middle when you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Giants, and see how that works out. Dude's gonna get wrecked. He's gonna get killed. And it's the same thing. And you've seen it happen a couple of times where, like, guys kind of pull the fast one, and then they hit a higher level promotion like the UFC or Bellator or something, and, like, the results are brutal. Like, a dude just gets, like, run through, completely outclassed. Like, it's just bad. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, so you're concerned about what people think, and you want to put it out there on social media that, I'm a fighter, and I'm this and that, I'm going to go to the UFC. Mm-hmm. Let's just say you got there, and you get murdered. Like, you get outclassed because, realistically, from a talent and skills perspective,
You weren't there.
you weren't at that level, which is okay. Like, there are people at all levels and any kind of sport or life activity. Not everyone is going to be the best and at the top level of every single thing that they choose to devote their time to, and that's perfectly fine. Like, as long as you're living your life authentically and you're doing what you want to do and you're happy, awesome. But, like, if you go there and you get obliterated and potentially really hurt, you're going to do it on a big stage where millions and millions of people live, in person, and then on TV and the internet and everything else are going to watch you get destroyed. And then you're going to have millions of people all over the world on Facebook and every forum known to man.
Think you're garbage.
Calling you a bum.
Yep.
And a pussy and all this other stuff. Yep. And, like, calling you out on your shit that you shouldn't have ever been there in the first place. So, like, yeah, okay, you can go and be like, oh, I made it to this promotion or I made it to that promotion. But when you go and you get hurt like that and you just get obliterated, like, it's going to become pretty clear to that organization, like, okay, this guy's not really on the level. They'll feed you to somebody else once or twice. You'll get murdered again, and then they'll cut you. And then now you're getting back out onto the regional scene, and you're not really that good to begin with still. But now you have the tag of UFC vet or Bellator vet or whatever.
What does that do?
Well, that elevates
everybody's coming after you now in the regionals.
Yeah, that elevates your level of competition. So now all of a sudden the guys that you probably realistically should be fighting are probably not going to touch you anymore. So when you were, had a couple fights in Bellator, the UFC or the PFL or something else, and then you get back to the regional scene, for the most part, the only guys that are fighting you are other guys who are, veterans of larger organizations or have a lot of experience, or some young up-and-coming stud who's trying to take you as a scalp and make a name off of you to then, add your scalp to his record and, be like, hey, I just knocked out this UFC vet in the first round. That's what he's coming for. So it's like, once you, and the thing is too, when you kind of extrapolate that out, it is much harder to get back into the UFC, for example, than it is to get in there the first time. Because again, once you get back out onto the open market, you've already got that tag.
Yeah.
So you're only fighting a certain level of competition from there. So it's like the road is, a lot harder from there. So it's like, again, like I've told some guys straight up, I'm like, listen, like, no offense, but like, you're not really at that level, and me just throwing you, somehow finding a bunch of guys that are like exponentially worse than you are, and you pad your record up to a certain point, like that does no one any good. It doesn't do the promotion any good. It doesn't do a management company any good. On the flip side of that, because there's just no real return or real trajectory. But for a promotion, it doesn't make sense, because what? You're going to sink all this money into, like, oh, I'm going to find this guy from a bar somewhere. Or, oh, I'm going to have somebody with a little sign outside of the regional jail trying to, find some dude who's just getting out. Hey, buddy, you want to take a pro fight for, some money? Oh, here, I'll have you fight this guy or whatever. as a promotion, and I've seen promotions do this before, you know, not as much around here, but in other areas, you know, they might indulge that stuff. And it's like you're sinking money and time and resources and a pro spot on a card into what is essentially tantamount to like polishing a turd. Like you're, you know what? I mean, what's the end game with that? You're gonna like, you know, shine this dude up to then maybe what? You move him up to a high level and he gets murdered a couple times and then gets cast out never to return. I mean,
So once again, David is showing himself as somebody who has the full view. He's got like the 30,000 foot view of what's the long range, what's going to actually happen. Now, how many guys actually listen to you after you tell them that?
not many, but that's on them. Some have, you know, some people were very upset when I explained that to them, which is understandable. But, you know, at the end of the day, at any level, I'm just going to tell you what I think. And especially if I can tell you what I think that's coming from an informed and realistic perspective. You know, if you choose not to accept the reality that is presented to you, that's on you.
Jeez.
You know?
Does that happen a lot?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Where coaches are putting their guys up to be to be lambs
Yeah.
led to the slaughter.
You know,
Almost.
Whether they know it or not, sometimes yes, or you know,
Okay.
or sometimes the coaches aren't realistic as to like what the guy's talent level and trajectory is at, you know, and sometimes like they'll just be like, oh, you know, you have the guys who say he's 4-5. Oh man, we want to fight that guy. You know, let's fight him for the title and blah blah blah, and let's get this kind of purse. And I'm just like, all right. Like, are you just trying to make a little bit of extra like cash on the side at the end of this thing? Because how does having your dude who has maybe a 500 record fight some 10-0 animal?
Yeah.
How do like what? I
Doesn't
mean, you
make
want to
any
fight
sense.
for the title and just like get fucked up and then you know what?
Like what's the? You said it. What
Yeah.
what
What's
is
your
the
end?
end goal here? Super Coach Paul.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen? Have you seen this of what is it? Like a coach or a trainer
Being delusional?
being delusional? Like
No.
the trainer.
We-
No, not at all. Right?
We've never been the way that we've always went about fights. And a John is always, you know, it's his say. It's a John Scott say as to whether we fight somebody or not. But he has always valued the input from all the other coaches, especially if they have, you know, dealt with the particular fighter from a one-on-one standpoint or know them intimately and what their capabilities are. So his gauge for me is he'll always gauge me, and I'll tell him, you know, I don't know how I feel about that fight, because I'll say here's our deficits and here's their advantages. It might play too well in their favor, but we do have the toughness factor, and it's always and the way
That's
that-
the problem, man. Is that freaking the X factor? I
Yeah.
keep hearing about that X factor, and then it's like in I liken it to playing poker. You know, you're playing. Let's say you're playing Texas Hold'em,
yeah.
and you've got like two. You know, you've got like a 6 and a 7, and you're just hoping for that 8, man.
Yeah.
You're hoping for that 8, and you wait all the way to the last. You know,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll get the 8. If you get the 8, you're gonna win.
Yeah.
But if you don't get the 8, you lose.
Well, so here's our thing. We don't like to make we don't want to pad anybody's record, right? We don't want people fighting tomato cans, but at the same time, we also don't want to sandbag. You know, we don't want to. We never want to sandbag, and we don't want to just fight tomato cans. So we'll put you up against somebody who, it's a 50-50 shot, especially at those higher levels. From a debut perspective, we're a lot more careful about it, and we want to make sure that, you know, the skill sets are matching up evenly, and you know, whether we're talking about time and training or like, you know, evaluations from coaches, things
Yeah.
like that, we do take that into consideration. But at the same time, we want to make sure that, you know, we want to be realistic to our guys.
Right.
That if we put you in a fight, it's a 50-50 shot.
Every
There
time,
is- yeah.
not every time, because the first fight, that debut fight, debut
you never
pro
know what
fight,
you're gonna get.
But the problem is that you can demoralize a fighter off of that first fight, can't you?
Sure, you can, but that also then it's up to the coaches
Yeah.
to be able to say.
And
you know,
that's
that-
on them too. You know,
Yeah.
how you deal with that and come back.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to be able to accept that and
Yeah.
deal with it if you're going to keep going. You
Yeah.
know?
Like we said, it's a 50-50 shot. You can lose. But that's anything in life. You
Yeah.
know, so if you
Okay.
can't bounce back from this, you're not going to bounce back from anything.
Okay.
You know, so you want
so
to
never tomato cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like and I don't want what I said to be misinterpreted in the sense that, like, you know, just because you don't have some amazing record doesn't mean
Sure.
you're any less of a fighter, you're any less of a person. That's not what I'm saying. But like, just like anything else in life, you know, or any other type of business,
Yep.
you know, if you have a high school diploma and you're just like, hey man, I think it'd be real cool to be a lawyer. You know, okay, but you have to do some other things and
Yeah,
you know
you
get
have
this
to have the
knowledge
aptitude for it, you have to have
get
knowledge.
the accomplishments and the credentials to then
Yeah.
you know become a lawyer. You can't skip like 5 steps.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing. You know, it's like I'm not knocking anybody. If you're going in there to fight as an amateur or as a pro, you are in the you know top 1% of the food chain for the
Yep.
human race. That from a skills perspective and just toughness and being game to go in and fight someone else by choice.
By
Whereas
choice.
like violence is something that most people run away from, literally. You know, like you are at the very top of the food chain, regardless of whatever level of fighter you're at, and,
Right.
and like
Yep.
all much respect for anyone who's doing it. You know what I mean? But like once you get into that, like there are like various levels that you know you're at, and you know I think that it's good if people have a realistic perspective as to where they're at.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you're not gonna go fight in the UFC. Maybe you're not gonna fight on Bellator. Maybe a regional fight, you know, as a pro or a regional title fight is going to be your Super Bowl because realistically, from a skills or talent perspective, record wise, whatever, like
Even
that's
time. Like, if you have the time left.
age,
Yeah.
you know, those are things that have to be taken into consideration and just have a realistic understanding and approach to that. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude, just do the best you can with
Yeah.
wherever you're at.
Yeah.
And awesome. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like it.
Once again,
So.
Fight Game Podcast is killing dreams. every time we have somebody in here, you know, like high profile person that understands what the hell's going on, there's always some dream killing going on.
I mean, at some point, you're going to have to come to. I have to come to terms with the fact that I am not an NBA caliber player of basketball.
Yeah.
I am a fan of the game of basketball, but I will
Yeah.
never be an NBA caliber player because I didn't put the time in, because I never had the credentials, because I don't have some of the
Yeah.
physical tools that are necessary to be successful in it nowadays. You know, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, Spud Webb was 5'8", and you know, Muggsy Bogues was only 5'6".
That doesn't count. They're black. Seriously, that doesn't count.
Thank you, an inappropriate button.
Yao Ming's like 10 feet tall. So there you go.
Yes, and at the same time, people have to remember that yes, they were exceptions to the rule. But guess what? Because they were exceptions to the rule,
Now everyone
everybody
thinks-
else has to be.
yeah.
Well, everybody else has to be the rule. If they're the exception,
not like
somebody's going to have to be the rule, and
Yeah.
the rule is us, the ones that are not playing in the
Yeah.
NBA.
Right.
So, you know, and I do get that, and you know, I've never been one to try and pump any fighter up to, you know, more than what I thought they were capable of doing or capable
Yeah.
of achieving. And it's always been about being realistic, right? Setting your
Yeah.
expectations properly for the people that train with you. Because at the end of the day, I'll have a lot more respect for somebody that says, yeah, you can't get there, as opposed to somebody who's going to try and tell me that I can get there.
Pump
and
you
I'm
up.
and pump me up, and I'm trying my hardest.
You end
and-
up wasting years of your life and potentially altering you or maybe even your family's career and financial situation,
Yeah.
chasing something that realistically it just wasn't going to happen from
Yeah.
the get go. And
That's a good segue because I had a question about what people and you actually kind of alluded to this in the beginning.
Yeah.
What fighters think they're going to get paid versus what they actually get paid. What should they really be expecting as a pro fighter?
well, realistically on like the regional scene, which is, you know, a catch-all term for the lower level promotions that you're going to be generally fighting on to, you know, build your record up to a certain point to where you would then matriculate up to a higher level promotion. You know, your pay usually starts in the hundreds per fight, you know, and if you're selling some tickets and, you know, you're making a percentage of those ticket sales or, you know, or other arrangements can be made. It just kind of depends on the situation, the promotion, what their usual terms are. You know, you start out you win your fight and you're 100 air, and you go buy yourself an Xbox and a couple of
Congratulations.
games or something, and then you get up into realistically the ceiling on the regional scene outside of larger organizations, unless you're just a mammoth ticket seller.
Sean
tends-
VA.
Yeah, that dude's an animal when it comes to the tickets. What he does is unreal.
We're gonna have to have him
He's-
on just to
yeah.
talk about that part.
He's, I mean, in just terms of ticket sales and just how he promotes himself and markets himself and just really gets out there and pumps that stuff. I mean, Sean is the man, and just in general in life and as a person, he's also the man. But, you know, that your worth and what you get paid on the regional scene is kind of a hybrid combination of experience, talent, trajectory, and what your drawing power is or is not. So if you're just kind of making a pro debut, realistically you're looking at maybe $300 to $400 to $500 to show, with a matching amount if you win. That's the way that most purses in MMA are structured. Boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai, it's a little different. Most of the time purses are flat. That's just hey, to fight you get paid X amount, whatever. And then there's different benefits to both. But that's usually where it starts. And if you're a local fighter fighting on local shows, ticket sales are important. There's limited spots on pro cards, and I say this as someone who I want nothing but the best 4 fighters that I work with, that I'm cool with. Just I know everybody and try to keep great relationships with as many people as possible. And in the perfect world, I want everyone to have the best shot at accomplishing whatever it is they're looking to and can accomplish. But you also need to kind of understand that a lot of people have the misconception that promotions are just raking in all this crazy cash, and it's just, all these promoters are getting crazy money and all this
they're
other stuff,
making
and
all the money, and the fighters aren't getting anything.
would be shocked at how many promotions are running around the country, putting on pro fights, and they run that are barely breaking even or taking losses and are basically just a write-off and a labor of love for someone that has another business or another job that actually sustains them.
Wow.
Most regional promotions lose money. A lot of regional promotions go under because they keep losing money and just take financial losses that are unsustainable. It is really, really hard to put on a promotion that's doing a lot of pro fights. There are a lot of other costs associated with it. And in Virginia, it's the athletic commission here is actually pretty reasonable when it comes to their costs and fees. I mean, there's the reason why there's so many great gyms in Nevada or California, for example, but there's really kind of and especially in Nevada, there's pretty much no regional pro scene, is because the rules and the requirements are just so astronomically expensive that for your average regional promoter, if you take his normal budget and then you're like, oh, okay, cool, we're going to hit you with another $22K in expenses, they're just going to be like, yeah, no thanks.
That ain't happening. Yeah.
And, promoters, especially at the regional level, no one's really getting rich. Plenty of promotions go in, do a couple shows, never do shows again, or they keep going but are making a surprisingly low amount of money or just losing money. But the promoters, for various reasons, whether it's they own a gym and they have fighters that just need fights, or other reasons, they just keep it going out of just love, pretty much, for the sport and just trying to provide an opportunity. Most regional promoters, 90+% of them, are not getting rich off of putting on these regional events. So it's like, dude, sell tickets, promote yourself, promote the event, because you need those platforms. It's a lot easier to do an all amateur show from an expense perspective than it is to do a pro-am or even an all-pro show. And if your goal is to matriculate up and become a pro and work your way up the regional scene and stuff like that, you need to understand that it's part what your talent is, part where you're at, and who you can fight, your experience, and then what your drawing power and marketability is, and what you bring to the table in terms of ticket sales. Most regional promotions, if you have a guy who's solid, and he'll sell you 5 tickets and ask for 10 free ones, or you have a guy who's solid and will sell 40, 50 plus tickets or more, 100 tickets, a couple hundred tickets in the case of some of these guys like Sean, most promotions are going to go with the dude who is actually out there promoting and selling tickets and doing his part, because for most promotions who are doing it the right way, at least, you're shelling out tens of thousands of dollars just to even provide the shell for dudes to go in and get those fights.
Would it make sense for fighters to have their own their marketer, like an online marketer? I can be somebody's cousin or wife or something.
Some guys do that to good effect, and some guys do that, and it's just a total train wreck.
Yeah. Really?
I had a dude who got some janky club promoters to do that for him, and they asked me to give them 300 tickets and that they would split the profits with me 50-50.
Right.
And I was just like, that's not how this works. Like, I'm not going to give you that many tickets, because if you think you can sell them, that's, well into the 5 figures of cash on the street in your hands, and I don't know you at all. I'm not going to trust you with that. I'll start you with 50. When you sell those, let's meet up and we'll keep it going.
Right.
But yeah, that ended up being a very interesting promotion. They were putting out their own posters saying that they were co-promoting with the promotion that I was matchmaking those fights for at the time. And I hit them up and I was like, hey, man, this isn't a co-promotion. Like, we have nothing to do with XYZ club promotions, And they're like, oh, well, it's a co-promotion like Don King and Showtime and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's a difference there. Both sides are putting money and a lot of resources and effort into this stuff. Like, you guys are basically just like making a little like poster and putting it out on social media and claiming you're now fight promoters. Like, that's not going to happen. You need to take that stuff down immediately.
Ooh.
Well, okay, so now going into that, fighters, how much input do you think fighters should have into picking their fights and how they run their career? Whether they take certain fights or don't take certain fights, things like that.
Well, my thoughts on that are, as an amateur, just, take fights, get experience, take scraps, like once you're ready to go pro and your coaches think you're ready to go pro, you go pro. Then at that point, take fights that you feel make sense for you. But if you just go and keep, crushing, lesser guys and fighting lesser guys, you get some nice looking record on paper, but, you could be 8-0 or 10-0, and like a bigger show isn't even going to give you a shot because they look at your record and see that you've just basically been crushing like professional jobbers essentially. And then, so you then prolong your trajectory a little bit because, you've already on paper gotten to a certain level, but then you come to the realization, or people tell you, hey, you need to fight and beat like real fighters, like other people who have skills, so then you have to go and then fight those people who actually have skills and talent and the ability to potentially beat you. And then most guys in that instance end up getting caught up, they end up getting kind of mired in that kind of perpetual upper level regional guy, maybe regional title fight stuff. But, you get to that level and then you never fought anyone good. You start fighting solid people. You win one, you lose one, you win one, you lose two. Then you end up in the teens and wins, maybe single digit losses, but trajectory wise, you've stayed largely static, because your record is always kind of going up like this proportionally. So, it's like you're never, it's not going to work, And again, it's like you need a gradual progression. You need to take steps up in competition. And, by the time, you're maybe hitting the upper level regional scene type stuff, or you're fighting on a, quote unquote feeder promotion like the LFA or Titan FC or some of these other, Shogun fights, bigger, promotions that have, an established presence, names, some real weight behind, their titles or whatever, you've had a progression to where you're just like, okay, I'm 10-1 and I'm getting ready to fight this dude who's, 10-2 or something. Right. And, I'm good, confident, fought increasing levels of competition over time to where then, it's like when you hit a high level, and that's kind of a lot of what we do is like, on the Sucker Punch side of things is manage a guy's trajectory and, kind of have, corresponding, increase in, caliber of opponents as the guy's working his way up, because that's the best way, in my opinion, to prepare a guy for success at a higher level. Like if you've already, been in there with really tough guys and you've won, like, hey, if this guy hits me with some good shots, I'm going to be okay. I can keep going. You set a guy up for success at a higher level, and he has a better chance of sticking around, because getting to the UFC or Bellator or some of these other higher level promotions like the PFL or ACB or ONE FC, Ryzen, getting there's one thing, and then you got there and awesome. You got to the UFC, you got to Bellator.
You did it.
Now you have to fight those people. You have to fight guys at that level.
Wait a minute, what?
And sometimes it's the work that it took you to get there is only half of the work that it'll take to keep you there.
Yeah, so it's like you get there, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you were the best dude coming up on the regional scene in the DMV area, and now
Big fish, little pond.
You're fighting the best dude who's coming out and maybe had one fight in the UFC or 2 fights in the UFC already, and you're fighting what at one point was the best guy in your weight class in a whole country.
Yeah.
Overseas. You could be fighting the guy who at one point was the number 1 ranked welterweight in the UK before he got into the UFC.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It's like everyone is going to be at that level or potentially higher than where you're at, and it's like, you're fighting tough dudes at that point, so it's like, you got there and awesome, and now the kind of the goals and the stuff you have to deal with kind of changes. Now it's like, okay, we're not like taking these fights and building up to try to get to a higher level. Okay, cool, we've up leveled, but at the same time now we're starting from the bottom again, but it's just kind of a whole different road that you're on at that point. You want to be prepared for that. You don't want the first time you fought a good dude to be in the UFC and you're just like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening? Like, this dude is just killing me.
You know what that reminds me of? So Dave was talking about great. You made it to the UFC. You made it to whatever, big top promotion, and now your work really begins, right? Yeah. When I went to Buds, before I went to Buds, so I was in the Navy, and all I wanted to do was be a SEAL. And when I finally made it to Buds, before that, I had great quote unquote coaches. That we didn't call them that. They were instructors who, outside of Buds, they had sort of like a grooming camp process type of thing down in Dam Neck, Virginia, where SEAL Team 6 is at. And these guys, you'd go to them, you'd train with them, and they would kind of like what David's doing with fighters. They would say, hey, don't do this, do this. They train you, they get you ready, right?
Right.
And the one thing that they would consistently say, besides all the stuff that you always hear, like the only easy day was yesterday and all that, would be this. You're going to think that Buds is hard. Like, you might be a stud right now going to the training to become a SEAL. This ain't nothing compared to when you actually do become a SEAL. And that's why, like, SEALs, when you finally get your Budweiser on your chest, that Budweiser doesn't stay there. Like, it's like a year of all the training, and then you go in a probationary period into one of the teams for a time, but they're still like testing you. So now you're actually doing real ops. Anything that you saw, Hell Week and all that stuff, that was BS. That was nothing compared to the actual real operations that you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you can't rise to the occasion there, all that work you did prior to that to get to that level
goes for naught.
You're going back, what we call the fleet. You're going back to the fleet, bro. You got to try again in 2 years, maybe. So it sounds very similar. It's like you got to keep your mind above where you think you're going.
And it's tough. I mean, you have guys who were at the top of the food chain regionally, wherever they were coming up, doing very well, beating tough guys. And they get into the UFC or Bellator or something else, and they essentially have a cup of coffee there, have a couple of fights. And even though, they're a stud from where they're coming from, it's like at that level, so is everybody. Pretty much, unless you catch some of these guys who somehow get through some tough seasons, or just somehow they kind of slip through the cracks a little bit. Every now and again, you'll see a guy in a higher level promotion. You're just like,
how did you get here?
But and if you work with fighters, you hope that maybe you can get a nice little fight against that guy. Otherwise, like, everyone's at that level. And I mean, I've seen some guys who are 10-0, or something like that. They get into the UFC. Have a couple of fights, win a couple or lose a couple in a row, or win 1, lose 3, something like that, and they end up getting cut, and they get back out onto the regional scene, and it's like, again, like I said, I mean, you have that tag on you for life, for better or for worse.
UFC
And yeah, you're a UFC vet, or you're like a legit Bellator vet, fighting on main cards, not like some local undercard stuff, but like, legit stuff. And, and then from that point, you're fighting studs and vets.
Yep.
God, how many guys right now are listening to this like at the right time, and are learning from it, and are now they're going to go the right direction, but they were headed down the wrong path with that.
Well, that's the hope, right?
I think you just saved some lives just now.
Or some guys are like, damn. Like,
Yeah, I'm exposed.
I did that, but I mean that's the hope. But at the same time, it's like, again, you just have to kind of have an understanding as to where you're at, or like the things that you need to do to then get to where you're looking to.
They need a guy. They need a guy like you. They need Suckerpunch. They need that. That's helpful to have.
Maybe
you
not
guys.
always us, but just whether it's a manager, or trainer, you need people in your corner who are realistic, have a good understanding of what's going on at the different levels, wherever you're going to be at, and just.
So you've got experience with low to high level. I mean, you guys spread the gamut. So
Sure.
Let me ask you this: what is the ideal stable of support around a fighter that's going to get them make sure that they're successful? What all should they have, people wise?
Support from family is good. If a guy's or a girl's family supports them in what they're doing, that's important. Whether it's monetary or just emotional and conceptual support, that's important. I mean, some people have the monetary support too, to where, when you're coming up as a fighter, it's kind of like a starving artist type of lifestyle. Like once you even get to the pro level, like the money you're making, you could fight every month and you're still going to be pretty poor. I mean, it's just not going to sustain you realistically, especially not in certain places like Northern Virginia or
Forget
New
about
York or other places. It's just not going to happen. If you think it's going to happen, you're just being delusional. Having that support is good, and then having, good trainers, people who actually want the best for you, want the best for you as a fighter at whatever level you're meant to be at.
What kind of trainers?
Just people who can work with you in the different skill sets that are required for whatever combat sport you're competing in.
Do you think these fighters need trainers, like a boxing trainer, a Thai trainer, a wrestling trainer? Do you think they need all kinds of different?
Well, I mean, at this stage in the game, I think it's been established that you kind of need all that.
You need them all.
At least if you're going to be in mixed martial arts. I mean, if you're just going to compete in Muay Thai, then maybe you don't need a jiu-jitsu coach. Obviously, you just need good Muay Thai coaches.
Right, but with MMA,
you need coaches that not everyone has to have the most incredibly credentialed background. Not everyone has to be an All-American wrestler or a Lumpini champion or like all this other stuff to be a really good coach and be knowledgeable and have the ability to coach a guy both in the gym and in fights. It's not like that. I mean, I've seen plenty of coaches who, maybe they weren't ridiculously high-level competitors or something like that, but like they have turned into very good coaches. And I've been cage side or ring side for just an inordinate amount of fights at this point, and I've seen like the actual like proof of like what some of these dudes are doing coaching wise, and I've seen a lot of solid coaching and some very good coaching, some very great coaching, in fights. And then I've seen some stuff where I'm just like looking at it like, what the fuck are they saying? What is that? Like,
Did anybody hear
like
that?
I was cage side one time, and these guys who were cornermen, told the dude in a fight when they were on the ground to drop that dun-dun-na, which I guess it was like some like rap song or something. I was not really familiar with it. I never heard it, and I would imagine it's probably pretty bad.
Something lewd, maybe. I don't know.
Who knows?
It was code for kick his ass.
It was like, I think it meant like elbows. Who knows? I don't even know. But it was just like some song reference, and that's what they were saying. Or when you hear people in the crowd, or even sometimes coaches yelling "sweep the leg," or just all kinds of other just like crazy like dumb shit.
Sweep the leg, really?
I am an overweight dude with tattoos and a beard who's just trained a lot of different places, been different parts of the world, and always find good places and good people to train with. Been to Thailand before, trained there.
Oh wow.
I love training and I have knowledge. I'm never going to be anyone's coach, but when you make someone like me
Question.
kind of raise an eyebrow, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, that's not good.
How did you feel? Sorry, I got to ask you,
Sure,
man.
yeah.
After that, how did you feel about Ronda Rousey's boxing and all that went down?
Well, I mean, I think that she had several fights, and this is my opinion, and if people disagree with me, then that's perfectly cool. She had a couple of fights to where she was fighting opponents that she was considerably bigger than. Several of them could have maybe been, flyweights, or just were smaller, and she was a lot bigger. And she was just able to kind of just, bully him. I mean, like, when she fought that Betch Correia chick, I mean, and like, that girl's good. She beat up several of Ronda Rousey's teammates, all that good stuff. But, like, Rousey was a lot bigger, stronger, and just kind of, like, was a dog and just got in there and kind of smacked her up and stuff. But then, when she got in there with, like, Holly Holm and started striking with Holly Holm, and that started to go south. And, like, that's one of those things where, like, you could tell pretty early on, like, man, this is not going to end well.
It was like a wait a minute moment, because before that, everybody was touting her as the second coming.
She's gonna kill this girl. Like,
She can fight professional boxers and hold her own.
That was delusional.
Totally, but Targaryen or whatever the hell is, I can't remember the dude's name.
Edmund Tarverdyan, I think is his name.
Exactly, that guy. That was hilarious to hear on all the.
She could be a Muay Thai champ. She'd be a boxing champ.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give the dude credit. I mean, like, for him to be able to instill that kind of confidence in his fighter was good. And he, has, I think he styles it, but he styles his unibrow like Al B. Sure used to, like styled uni, going on. And that's cool, if that's your thing and you want to style your unibrow. But, aside from the unibrow style, I think that he kind of instilled a false sense of confidence.
Snake
there.
oil, once again.
Yeah, and I mean, it was pretty ugly. And then when she fought Amanda Nunes, I mean, that was ugly. I remember being in a sports bar with my wife and the people around us, like at the tables around us in Richmond. They're like, Rousey's gonna kill this chick. Blah, blah, blah. This is a mismatch. Like, all this, like, dumb shit. I mean, they didn't really know what they were talking about. And that fight started, and right out the gate, I could, as soon as Nunez started to hit her, like, I could tell what was going to happen, and, like, I just started laughing because I could see where it was going. It's like one of those, like, fights. It's like, it's going to be a slaughter. It's like, you see the car on the train tracks and it's not moving, and the train's coming, and you just can't, like, look away. You're just like, and it ended badly. But yeah,
real bad.
I don't,
highlight real bad.
Like, I just don't know if that was maybe the right way to go about things for Rousey.
Not at all. And she wasn't listening to her mother, who apparently was begging her to get rid of him
because he was a fraud,
a fraud,
whatever.
Whatever she said, allegedly. I get it.
But yeah,
that was sad, but
didn't end well.
But you know what? Thank you, Rhonda, for making helping make the women's UFC, women's MMA in general, just
and
like
she had
them on the map.
And she had those 2 losses, and everyone wants to act like she's, like, less of a fighter and accomplished, like, less than what she actually did. But, like, before those 2 fights, she was running through people who were, like,
armbar,
TKO due to knees, like, just like all this other stuff. Like, she was previous to that beating, all the top girls in her division that the UFC was putting up against her. So it's like, I feel like, I don't know, sometimes, like, fans in MMA can be very fickle and mean and, everything else. But it's like, before that, I mean, she, like, Gina Carano started to put women's MMA on the map.
Gina.
And then, Ronda kind of, kept carrying the torch after that. Got it to where it is now. And I've always been a huge fan of Cyborg, too. I think her fights,
too.
I love watching her fights. It's kind of like watching old Mike Tyson videos when, like, that, like, someone's just gonna get, like, violently,
somebody's
getting starched,
and
like, it's just not gonna be...
and Holly Holm is one of the few people in a long, long time to go the distance with Cyborg. But, like, you could even see, like, Cyborg's jabs were, like, hurting her, like staggering her, like lifting her up off her feet a little bit. I mean, Cyborg's a beast. I mean,
Did you
like,
see Cyborg's fight against the Muay Thai fight against that tall Norwegian? Maybe?
Urena Bars.
Urena Bars, yeah. And Cyborg lost that fight.
Yeah.
We actually work with Urena Bars.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, we did.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, she's
She did a good job against her.
undefeated. She's a beast.
Yeah,
I mean, she's amazing.
She
yeah.
was amazing at using range and being able to keep whatchamacallit, Cyborg at bay.
She looked
using
like
her knees and her teeth.
She looked like she had a foot on Cyborg.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and she used it well because I mean, she didn't let Cyborg just get in the pocket and really start thumping.
That
and
would have been a
stuff. I mean,
problem.
like, yeah.
You think that would have been a problem for her if she did let her in?
I mean, it would have been more of a problem, but I mean, I just think like in terms of pure striking, in a pure striking fight, Urena was just considerably better.
Just
but
outclass her.
in MMA, Cyborg is a bad lady.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy watching the results.
Do we know how old Cyborg is?
Like late 30s, I think.
She's got. I think she's under 35.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
She's under
But
35.
she's been doing it for a while.
I was about to say
Yeah,
she's
she
got to
has.
be getting close to retirement, man.
I mean, what is
I don't know. I mean,
she doesn't have a title shot. Who
she's the champ now.
oh,
Yeah.
right. So 45. Sorry, because
Yeah.
you could never make 35.
Right.
Yeah, she got down to 40, and even that was just too rough because Ronda Rousey started fighting at 45, and then in Strikeforce they started talking about, oh yeah, like let's have Ronda Rousey fight Cyborg, and then all of a sudden Ronda was a 35er.
Yeah.
And then when Ronda Rousey, her star became ascendant, and her people took the attitude, oh well, she has to come down to us. She has to come down to 35 and fight us, which realistically was saying that the fight wasn't going to happen.
Right, yeah.
Because Cyborg is cutting a decent amount of weight to make 45. She was going into really bad issues,
Dying.
even getting to 40.
Yeah, it's not
so
happening.
realistically, 35 is just not going to happen.
No.
So you're saying that the fight isn't going to happen,
Right.
Which is fine that that's your choice.
It's like a de facto refusal.
I think realistically for Ronda Rousey that was a good choice, and after she lost to Nunez, her coach came out and was like, "Oh yeah, we think the Cyborg fight would be good next." And
Are you kidding
it
me?
was just like, God damn, dude,
Stupid.
Really?
Yeah,
That idiot.
he was talking about Ronda fighting Cyborg, which I would watch that fight.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, how much? I mean, at that point, you really have to question: does that dude just want some camera time?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
his little piece of the purse for training her?
Yep.
Because if you're trying to do that after she's had 2 knockout losses,
You don't
in a
care
row,
about her.
and you're gonna put her against a chick who could knock out both of the girls that just knocked Rousey out. I mean, at that point, how do you actually really genuinely care?
You don't.
That's just
You don't.
You're just pimping her out at that point.
What do you think about Ronda in WWE?
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
I mean,
making money.
Yeah, she's making money, and considerably less head trauma there. She's loyal to her friends. I mean, she got some of her. Now at this point, all of her the 4 horsewomen, her.
Yeah.
She got Shayna Baszler, who actually had some wrestling experience before, and then also Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, which are her 3 main training partners, former roommates, best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling themselves the 4 horsewomen and stuff. She got all of them. Shayna Baszler and now Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir are all in NXT now, which is the feeder system for the WWE.
For the WWE.
which- That's cool. I mean, good for them, you
Yeah.
know, and I hope she does well there, It's and if she ever comes back to MMA, I would hope that she finds a different trainer.
Hell yeah. So sick.
But
What do you got on your list, man? You got anything else on your list?
The
there?
only other question that I have left is, do you have any other fight news that you would like to share with us?
Oh yeah. What do we miss?
yeah,
So we've already gone over Valhalla,
Yeah.
which is coming up on June
So-
16th.
Yeah, that was kind of one thing that I definitely wanted to touch on. Otherwise we kind of talked about a lot of the stuff in terms of Sucker Punch and everything else, and we were talking about this earlier in terms of kind of bringing it back and maybe touching on it and stuff like that. But I'm putting out kind of a warning and disclaimer to people who aren't aware of the tradition that I have, but for Valhalla, for this event and for all events, subsequently, I tell guys, I'm like, hey, get me your fight music by Wednesday
Oh,
of fight
Lord.
week so we can program it in. Otherwise, I'm going to pick your music for you. And, you know, I like metal and I like a lot of other stuff too. But, you know, I'm really big into slow jams, R&B and soul and stuff. And, you know, if you don't get me your walkout music in time, I'm going to pick a slow jam that I want to hear during an MMA or Muay Thai event and not necessarily something that you would want to walk out to. So, you know.
That's gonna be amazing. Somebody's just gonna be walking out to
Who-
like Keith Sweat or something.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Some,
Oh,
some
yeah.
I heard the Albie Shore reference. So
Yeah,
I thought that
yeah,
was
oh, yeah,
hilarious.
that's
I'll
a
be
good one.
sure. Maybe some R. Kelly.
Oh yeah. Like there's a couple of good ones. I mean, my ringtone on my phone's like the first 30-something seconds of Bump and Grind by R. Kelly. So that, like I was telling Paul, that way, like when my phone goes off, I'm happy about it and I listen to the song a little bit and then I pick it up.
That's bad if the fight is like a
Yeah.
jujitsu guys and they're like bumping and grinding.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be funny, yeah. Or like, you know, you have like, I mean, yeah. I always thought it would be really cool. Do you guys know D'Angelo?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
The naked video one.
No, I mean that's a nice song. That's a good song. You know, that's like when people think D'Angelo, that's what they think
of.
The
Yeah.
How Does
But
It Feel video.
off
Not
of
the Brown
his-
Sugar video.
Yeah, off of his first album, the Brown Sugar album, he has a song on there called "Shit Damn Motherfucker." And that's what the song is called, and that's a crazy name for a song. But what the song is about is basically he comes home, finds his best friend and his wife in bed together,
Whoa.
and then goes through like these multiple stages of like realization about the situation, how he feels about it,
I
and
remember
he
that.
blacks out, and he stabs them both to death, and then at the end of the song, and the song is smooth. Like that song is really, it's a smooth song.
It's a beautiful song about murder.
Yeah.
D'Angelo is like, he's got a great voice and he always had like a full, full jazz band behind him, like
Yeah.
so it's smooth music. But it's basically him coming home, finding his best friend and his wife in bed together, and he just blacks out, stabs and kills them both, and then he like kind of comes to, and he's like, why am I, covered in blood? Why am I in handcuffs? And like, the thing is, it's a hard, for it being such a smooth sounding song, like that song is like hard as fuck.
It's dark.
And like, I always thought it would be cool if a dude walked out to that song and you turned all like the lights in the venue off and just had red lights,
Yes.
like going and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
that would be
And a dude
sick.
walks out to that.
Dude, I saw
that'd
that.
pretty,
I
like,
saw
yeah.
red before you even said it. I was
Yeah.
like thinking of the
Yeah.
ambiance would be.
I've always I'm a big fan of this song by Raheem Devon called Pink Crush Velvet. I
Yep.
don't know if you guys are familiar with Raheem Devon.
I'm familiar with
But
Raheem Devon.
he's really good. But this song Pink Crush Velvet is amazing. Like it's everything that like
David is lighting up right
slow
now.
jam should be.
He
He's-
really
and
is.
He's lighting
Yeah.
up right now
It is
talking about this.
amazing.
And so like
And not to be,
Yeah.
this is by no means where we being judgmental,
Sure.
but on the surface, when you look at Dave, R&B slow jams
Not
is
even
not the
close.
first thing that will come to your mind.
No,
It
but
really
I
just isn't.
But I love it, man. I love it
It's
because
freaking awesome.
I like when you go date with people and actually talk to them, and you
Yeah.
get to get outside of the caricature that you created in
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah.
like I've been to like soul concerts and other stuff before. Like I remember
Did they think your security
a
staff?
couple of years
Yeah.
like this is probably like this is back when my wife was still like my girlfriend. So this is I think 2012.
Okay.
We met in like the spring, like late spring of 2011. But this is our first like full year of dating or whatever. But we went to see Eric Roberson, who's a really good soul singer. We
familiar.
saw him at the Birchmere here in like Alexandria. Eric Roberson's a really good soul singer, but he's also written a lot of really good songs, and that he's got Grammys and stuff for songwriting. But he's written for Jill Scott, Music Soul Child.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
you
Those
know,
artists I'm
yeah,
familiar
like
with.
just a lot of other like just really like high level, very accomplished and well known soul singers, and he's very good himself, but. He had one record deal super early on, and then he went indie after that and just kind of always did his own thing because he got dropped from his record deal after he recorded his album, and then he went back to Howard University, finished college, and then just did his own thing after that. But so I was at this Eric Roberson show, and just kind of putting it plainly, I was really the only dude who looked like me.
Oh, boy.
At that show,
Yeah.
you know, and I had like multiple people come up to me and just like, "Hey, man, like, do you like this kind of music, man?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, like that's why I bought these tickets." You know, like that's why I'm
Pay
here
for 'em,
to
dude.
sit down and get a center stage seat to sit down and have dinner and watch this show, because like the Birchmere is like a great intimate venue, especially for soul music. I've seen Eric Roberson there multiple times. I've seen Dwelle there before. I missed Music Soul Child there once, which kills me.
That had
Yeah.
to have been a good show.
But
You know
yeah,
what? I
yeah.
need to write this down because whenever I'm thinking of like date night stuff, I got a 5-year-old
Yeah.
daughter, so when we have date night, it's got to be special.
Yeah.
That's it. Birchmere.
Yeah, oh yeah, Birchmere, you know, go see like some jazz or some soul there or something like that. It's a really nice intimate venue in Alexandria. Like there's not really a bad seat in the house, and you sit down, you eat dinner. You know, it's dinner and a show. It's great. But I had a guy, he came up to me, and I think most people's exposure to, you know, this stuff, because he came up and he was like, "Hey, like, you look like you're a guy who listens to like Anthrax or something
Right.
like that."
Yeah.
And I respect their contributions to the metal genre, but like I'm not really the biggest fan of theirs. You know, like I would never buy their music. I support what they do, and best of luck to them, but
Right.
it's not my thing. But most people have seen like Scott Ian on VH1, and he's got like the, you know, long chin beard, and he dyes it, and it's Scott Ian, Anthrax, and it's some people's, maybe some of their only exposure to metal.
That's it.
You know, and so he
Bring the noise.
I was just like, yeah, you know, they're okay, but you know, I'm into metal and stuff, but I really love like R&B and soul, and like people were just like, all right, cool, you know. And like I remember Eric Roberson at that first one, you know, because at the Birchmere you buy tickets, but you get your seat in order of like when you're in line.
Okay.
So I always try to get there early. That way you can get a really good table, like center stage, you know, really close to the stage, get a great view and everything. And so we were very early. And so Eric Roberson, he always comes out early before his shows to, you know, say what's up to the people who get there super early to like wait to, you know, get good seats. And he came up and he was just like, "Yo, if there's a white guy with tattoos and a beard at my show, I'm getting a picture." and you know, we got one, and it
That's
was
Oh,
dope.
that
I
is
was
dope,
I was
man.
wearing like a metal band T-shirt and like shorts and Adidas.
What were you doing
know?
wearing a metal band
Just
T-shirt?
because 90% of my wardrobe is black T-shirts and polos, you know.
Okay,
It's just what I wear, you
All
know.
right,
But
all right.
That's awesome.
like,
Because
but yeah,
I almost
nah.
feel like he was like baiting him by wearing a
no,
metal shirt.
no,
to
that's
a-
just most of what I wear is black T-shirts. My wife hates it. You
No
know?
wonder they came up to you and was like, "Yeah, nice." You know, I don't even know
Yeah.
what's a good metal band, right off the top of your head.
Mastodon.
Okay, fine. Hey, that's a great Mastodon shirt. But what are you doing here? I would ask you the same thing, and I.
But
Jeez.
yeah, nah. I mean, I like that stuff. I've booked earlier this year and late last year. I was on a huge, you know, we were talking about your poster
Yeah.
of Sade or whatever.
Oh, let
I
me
was,
bring it out here
yeah.
while you're talking.
she is awesome, and
We love Sade.
I completed all of the albums of hers on iTunes, and I listened to nothing but Sade for like probably close to a month. And then like
That's awesome.
every day. And now when I wake up, my alarm clock is it's a couple different Sade songs. You know, Is It a Crime, Smooth Operator, and what's the other one? I'll go between like a Tattoo or, you know, some of the other ones. But like Sade is great. But if there was a way that I could do it and people wouldn't really hate it, if I could combine like an MMA show with lots of slow jams, like essentially at that point it's everything that I like in
Yeah.
life. But I think most people at MMA shows aren't really trying to listen to like a bunch of baby making music
I don't see it.
in between
That's
fights.
a tough one.
I don't
That's a
see
tough
it,
one,
man.
Dave.
But a couple,
just gonna put that out there.
A couple
Tough
times
sell.
I've snuck some in there. Just
Yeah.
like told the DJ, "Hey man, just throughout the course of the show, just in between fights or intermissions or something, play this one or two songs." Or I've had fighters walk out to a couple different ones. Like I had a guy walk out to "Too Close" by Next. That was a good one, especially as a pre-fight song. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
See, "Turn Off the Lights" by Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh, come on.
That's a good one. And, you know, for fighting purposes, it's cool. Kind of the flip side to that, I guess, is if a dude walks out to that Fight Night song by Migos, I would almost want to put it contractually in his contract.
You
that,
lose
like,
money.
I'm going to deduct
Yeah.
at least $100 from your purse.
I agree.
If you walk out to that song.
God, what
because
do you-
That song is so stupid.
Dude,
So bad.
What do you think about all the hip hop that's out now? This mumble rapping crap and
Trash.
trap music.
trash.
It's garbage, right?
Terrible.
I cannot stand it, bro. I
yeah.
tried, man. I
Yeah.
legitimately turned on.
Yeah. Every now and again, one of those guys will put out a song that maybe like the music behind it is like kind of nice.
Yeah.
And I can kind of just listen to the music and then kind of work on tuning him out.
But then,
But otherwise, man, it's not my thing. I like Mos Def and like Common and
yeah,
like
you like
lyrical,
the old
lyrical rappers.
yeah,
real
but,
rappers.
You know,
Real rappers.
I've never been really too much into that genre. It's pretty much always just been like R&B and soul, and then like metal. You know.
But what about the hardcore? Like listening to like I don't know, 50 Cent, Public Enemy,
Public Enemy,
Biggie,
yes. 50 Cent, no.
Biggie.
Yeah.
Biggie?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I like.
You're a New
yeah.
York Giants fan. You like?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that stuff. I mean, I can appreciate it. I mean, I don't really go out of my way to listen to it a ton.
So just
I love Big
sonically.
Punisher.
Big
I love
Pun,
Big
okay.
Pun,
Yeah,
oh my
and he
God,
gets
the
a lot of
best.
respect too.
Yeah, he's the best. But yeah, but I can like some stuff. I can appreciate it. I just don't, and I can handle listening to it. But I just don't go out of my way to listen to it or buy the music.
Right.
But you know, it's for me on a day in and day out basis. It's slow jams and then some metal.
That is
The-
so freaking
The
awesome.
duality of man.
Yes.
Well, just it's stuff that gets like a visceral response. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like like a lot of the pop country or other stuff that's out now, or just some of this other like EDM and other stuff. With the EDM stuff and some like the rap that's coming out now, I just don't do the type of drugs that would be necessary to make that stuff
To enjoy it.
sound good.
Right.
I just don't do that. And if that's your choice and you want to do that, then great. But I don't. And so I can't really appreciate it, really. And then, like, the bro country and a lot of this other country stuff, your Kenny Chesney
Oh, God.
and all this other just, like, crap. Oh, it's terrible. And it just doesn't, like, resonate with me whatsoever. So, like, I just can't, like, handle it.
But that's what music is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to be able to
Yeah,
resonate with
and-
you, and if it resonates
yeah.
with with people, then
Yeah.
that's good enough.
If that's your thing and that's
Yeah.
what you're into, then great. It's
Very
like
true.
music and, like, that's what music and religion are, like, almost the same. It's like, if it works for you and it makes you happy, then great. But just some of those things just really aren't for me.
Yeah.
So, good for you, man.
Let bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the music portion of the Fight Game podcast. First ever. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Dave.
Yes.
And it probably won't be the last, I'm sure. Actually, that's a fun
That might lead me into asking people about musical preferences from now
for their
on.
for their especially just on a psychological level, like kind of because it helps you kind of like figure out the psychology and personality of somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also the what do you like to walk out to? What are the songs that you walk out to?
I've had my best sparring sessions in the gym, like do a little bit of like, meditation, just like relax and just meditate a little bit before I leave for the gym, and then when I'm on my way to the gym, or even sometimes if I can somehow, finagle my way into plugging my iPod in. I've had my best sparring sessions ever either listening to slow jams on my way to the gym, or a couple times I've plugged in my slow jam playlist into the gym speakers and played slow jams during a sparring class. And most other people hated it, but
Of
like
course,
I was
yeah.
doing great and my gas tank was like unlimited pretty much, and I just like felt great.
Wow.
Things were awesome, and
Put you in the right
whatever.
space.
Yeah, just put me in a good space, and that's where I was at, like
They say Bruce Lee started that in the Fight Game. He started the training to music as a aid to your training.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the rhythm or just other things about the music can like, kind of manifest itself in different ways as far as like what you do, obviously.
It activates certain parts of your
Yeah,
brain.
so-
I think it
yeah.
unlocks your creativity too.
Yeah.
Like why Joe Rogan says you should smoke weed before and during training.
Yeah.
Unlocks us the creativity.
I mean that works for some people. I know plenty of guys who do that, and I have nothing against marijuana. I'm all for it. I just personally don't get intoxicated in any way very often. Maybe a couple times a year with some drinks at a wedding or something like that, and. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with the devil's lettuce. But like me personally, if I were to do that, I'm going to be on a couch somewhere and I need to be where I'm going to be because I'm not really going to be doing anything productive other than like maybe watching some cool movies like Zulu, like the old school one with like Michael Caine and like those dudes, or like Pootie Tang, or like some of the other.
you got to watch that, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
And,
Pootie Tang.
and whereas I know some guys who like they can, really hit, a pretty solid amount of the cannabis and then go train or go drive or work or do all this other productive stuff. And I'm just like, man, I don't know how you do that, man. Like, I couldn't do that.
That ain't happening. Well, all right. So we're hitting the end of the show here, and I need to plug something real bad. And after I plug this, I want you to go ahead, think about your plugs while I'm doing this. Just letting you guys know, speaking of huge promotions, Shogun 14 is going to be at the MGM Grand Inner Harbor, which is the first fight promotion to ever be held at the MGM Grand. So this is huge, man. This is historical. This is history-making stuff here. So definitely buy your tickets for that. Go to those fights, because you're going to be part of history by doing that. Not just seeing awesome fights, but also being part of history. Hey, it's a plus. As an addendum to that, listen to me. In a week, okay, so we're talking Sunday, June 10th at 4:30 p.m. We're going to be at Rockwood. Okay, that is in Gainesville. I don't have the address on me in front of me right now. I think it's like Iron Road or something like that. But go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Righteous Anger. No, I can't believe I did that.
The Fight Game Podcast.
Fight Game Podcast is what happens when you have two podcasts. Fight Game Podcast, and we actually have an event up. You can click on it, say, yes, I am going. It's a free event. What we're going to do is we're going to talk to the fighters. We're going to have a UFC-style press conference with all the fighters, and there's probably going to be some ill will. There's probably going to be some shit talking, possibly, but it's a cool opportunity for you guys to come out, talk to the fighters, hear what they got to say about their fights before the actual fight. We're going to hold a 50-50 raffle. We're going to actually talk to our fans, you guys. So definitely come out there and support it. Like I said, it's a free event. If you want to be part of the raffle, that's cool too. Great food, great drinks in Gainesville, Virginia. So come out.
Great nachos too. I ate there today.
Oh, were you there today?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. I'm going to try the nachos for sure. And once again, guys, we love having you. We want to, have actual engagement with you. So if you love the Fight Game Podcast, please come out there. Once again, it is next Sunday, June 10th, 4:30 p.m. At Rockwood in Gainesville, Rockwood Restaurant. And do you have any plugs, sir?
Sure, yeah. We coming up, we've got on June 16th, we've got Valhalla Fighting Championships at the Body Renew Sports Complex in Winchester, Virginia. It's going to be a great night of Muay Thai action with a amateur boxing undercard as well. So you get the best of both of these striking arts. But it's going to be a great show. Great solid fight card. A lot of good fights. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck for sure. And then I guess the kind of only other thing that I wanted to plug was just I think that. And probably all of us here have spent time, as an adult, like doing stuff that you really didn't enjoy doing. But you just do it for the money because you have to make money to live and, have a roof over your head and all that good stuff. Yeah. But, it's like, I made the decision kind of like more towards the end of last year to actually just go like full time in, just combat sports related stuff, and stop doing, the other stuff that I was doing on the private security side of things. And, it's like arguably, I may have like made, a little more money overall, like in like early, like I just turned 30. But
you're only 30 years old.
Yeah, I'm only 30. The beard hides.
It's the
my
beard,
age.
man. It's the
I'll
beard.
show you a picture of what I looked like in college, like at the beginning of my freshman year before this happened, and it's different. But I did stuff previous, to kind of going full time into combat sports and stuff, and it kind of got to a point to where, I was just like kind of stressed out to the max. I was burning the candle at both ends and, just in a lot of areas of my life, like I wasn't really like happy and stuff. So, it's like due to the opportunities that like I've, been given and like just, put in work for a couple of years and stuff. And, I made the decision to go, full time, working for, Suckerpunch and working as a matchmaking and just kind of other purpose consultant for, promotions and everything. But like, I've been happier just every day, just waking up. Like, how rare is that? Like,
Super
you get to
rare.
wake up every day and just like genuinely be happy.
Want to get out of bed?
and that you're gonna do it. At the end of the day, like, I'm just like, hey, like, this stuff was good. Like, I had a good day. Like, I'm just like really grateful for where I'm at. And like, I don't really put too much of my own personal business on social media. For the most part, it's either fight related stuff or like slow jam videos or something like
Right
that,
on.
or just like funny stuff. But like, you know, I wouldn't. None of this, like the management stuff or really any of that other stuff that I got into and kind of have gotten to a pretty high level with now, like none of that would have ever came about. And most people don't know this. About like 4 years ago, Scott, we had worked together. I was matchmaking for a show that he had several fighters, fight on, that Victorium show that was like out in the swamp
yeah.
in Gloucester.
Yes, I remember that.
I thought it was inside, and then I showed up and found
was
out that
outside?
it was outside in a field in the
Yes.
swamp in Gloucester. We started talking more after that, and Scott gave me the opportunity to come on and work with Sucker Punch. Like otherwise, like it was something that was never really on my radar. Like working in like the fighter management side of things, never really thought about it. It would have never really happened, to be perfectly honest. But he gave me that opportunity to kind of come in and start working with Sucker Punch, under him and Brian Hamper and Brian Butler. But like, I don't know, like without Scott, like I really, that wouldn't have happened, like I said. And it's like, he was there to like kind of mentor me and like, answer my questions and kind of help guide me. And we've gotten into some disagreements in the past and we've like banged heads and stuff. But it's like, I never did anything to really like financially benefit Scott in any way. Like he just kind of gave me this opportunity that ended up really kind of changing the direction of like my life and like where I ended up. And it's like, at the end of every day, like I'm like, I'm happy. I've enjoyed what I do. I believe in what I do. And like, I've been like really grateful for that, and like none of that would be possible or would have happened like without Scott giving me the opportunity and continuing to kind of like mentor me and like help me grow. And like, he's a dude who like doesn't put his stuff out there. He doesn't want public acknowledgement. He's not trying to be like Mr. Online Coaching Guru type dude. But like I said, again, like I never did anything that was really like of a benefit to Scott necessarily. I never like was like paying him money. I was never a member of his gym. I've been to one class at Disciple over the course of like many years. It was brutal. But it's like he just, I guess, he just said he saw good intent and he just gave me the opportunity. But it's like without him, like my life would be completely different and in a very different place than like where it is now. And it's like, he's a mentor, kind of borderline like father figure to me almost and stuff. He's always been there for me no matter what, to answer questions or just help me. He's helped me through some tough shit just in life in general. And, like I can't, I'm very grateful for where I'm at now, but like I can't really ever thank him enough or, ever really convey like just how much that he actually like did for me to like really just help change my life, like straight up.
This is becoming a recurring theme, by the way.
And like, so
He's doing a lot of good in the world,
I'm
I
just,
see.
Yeah.
like really grateful for him and just like who he is and what he's done for me. Because again, it's like he kind of redirected me, and I think he knew what he was doing and he sensed how things would go. I mean, Scott's a pretty smart dude, but at the same time, like he ended up kind of like propelling me into a different direction and really like allowing me to get to a completely different place in life than I ever thought I'd be. And like, I know that like without him, I would be, my same age, be with the same woman, all that good stuff. But like, I wouldn't be at the place I'm at in life now or be just truly happy.
Big shout
every
out.
day.
That's
Big,
amazing.
Yeah.
big shout
That is
out.
awesome.
Big shout out to
Yeah, for sure.
Arjan.
Yeah.
Scott Howard, of course. Like I said, that's a recurring theme. I mean, we've got lots of guys that come through here. Super Coach being one of them who
Yeah.
owes a lot, and myself as well. As I do, he's given so much. So big up to you, Scott. Let me go ahead and close the show out now. There's a couple of things that I always say. This time I'm going to let Paul say it to close us out.
So everybody, please make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Fight Game Podcast. So we're on all your different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. Don't think we're on Snapchat.
Not on Snapchat.
Not on Snapchat.
Should be on Snapchat, right?
Should be.
Okay.
But we also have, you have your Patreon site. That's www.patreon.com/Fight Game Podcast.
Yes.
And make sure that you guys, subscribe. Get that membership. It's $2 a month. It's not even a taco at Taco Bell at this point.
Right.
And believe me, I know the prices of Taco Bell. But definitely subscribe to the Patreon site. It'll help. It'll help the Fight Game Podcast, and it'll help fund all the things that we want to be able to do for you guys, like being able to put us in a studio space where we can do techniques of the day, things like that, and do all kinds of. It would absolutely springboard all of our creative outlets to be able to provide you guys with even more content that you've ever seen. Currently with the Fight Game Podcast as it stands today. So
when we said originally, I don't know if you guys watched the first episode, but when we said that the whole point of Fight Game Podcast is put shine on the DMV fight game area and throughout the East Coast as we grow, you think we're joking? I mean, we've got a media company here that we're trying to build, and what comes with the media company, of course, is the podcast. But on top of that, you've got amazing video content that we want to provide you guys with. We want to show you guys what these amateur and pro fighters are doing, like the real 4K, bam, right in your face, watching the sweat drip, watching the blood, watching the sacrifices these guys and gals are making in the fight game. You can watch that. I don't know about you, but I love watching that stuff, especially from Tiger Muay Thai over there. They got some of the best videos. I watch it like when I'm on the treadmill. It gets me pumped. It gets me hyped. That's what we want to do. We want to give you stuff to get you pumped, hyped, and of course, the whole point of the Fight Game Podcast is to teach you some things. David today taught you guys a gazillion things, okay? If you could just walk away with one or two things that David brought to this podcast, I think your career is going to get exponentially better. But on top of that, we also want to help bring shine to the area, bring shine to the fight game here, and then, of course, get you guys motivated as well. So like Super Coach Paul said, make sure that you do all the things that you can do to help us do all the things that we can do back for you, okay? So that's what we got. Paul, you did a great job with the closing.
Thank you.
And all I got to say is thanks for coming on, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome.
It was fun.
Not the last time.
Yeah.
Please don't let it be the last time.
Right on, guys. We're signing off. Take it easy.
Peace.